I'm stuck in Folsom Prison, and time keeps dragging on. But that train keeps rolling, all down to San Antonio, all down to San Antonio. When I was just a baby, my mama told me, son, always be a good boy. Don't ever play with guns.
All right. Good morning, everybody. Again, it is PPI Day. I played the Trump train song because I really think we're at war with a lot of forces right now. We'll talk about that. I got a lot of posts about it too. 7:30, roughly 31 minutes from now, we'll get PPI data and jobless claims. That's going to be the bulk of it today. So it's all going to be about that. We'll look at the breakdowns as they come. And then Friday is manufacturing, new motor vehicle, wholesale, Michigan consumer sentiment, a bunch of other Michigan-related data. But today's the big one. Today's the big one where we need to see some good numbers to follow up with the CPI from yesterday. And I would actually argue that the 10 and 2-year going up with bond yields yesterday was probably most correlated with the fact that I think people were still worried about PPI being high. So we're looking for confirmation here. And again, we were in, if you look at the 2-year and the 10-year, we were in pretty oversold conditions over a lower time frame. Like if you look over here, the cliff that we kind of fell off since February 10th all the way down here to March 17th, 3 weeks. We went from 4.4 down to 3.83. So I would say that there's probably some good reason for a short-term bounce, but I do think it'll continue to roll over if the PPI looks good today. Good morning, everybody. Good morning, Ireland. Good morning, Mike. Good morning, Joshua. Carlos said, been having a rough couple of days. Thanks for the morning show, Jesse. It cheers me up. Well, I'm sorry to hear that, man. I don't know if it's markets or something else, but I'm sorry to hear it. So I want to start off by just counting our blessings if you're here in the United States. So now we have the European Commission talking about using 10 trillion of dormant savings. So they want to steal people's money. This is very Cyprus. This is very Angela Merkel and Cyprus when they destroyed that economy and then ended up basically devaluing everybody's money and stealing all the wealth of the people that lived there. Reminds me very much of that. So they want to take unused savings and they want to invest it. All savings are invested in the economy to what the EU wants to take control of your money. So again, we're pushing for a central bank digital currency. And I think they want to use this for the war machine and they want to use it to reignite their economy because you guys in Europe shouldn't have 10 trillion euros sitting around collecting interest. The government should be able to confiscate it and use it for its own purposes. So if you live in Europe, I would be getting the fuck out when you see stuff like this. I would get out of the financial system. I would get into Bitcoin. You better run. And we're going to see more posts in relation to this too. It's not a good thing. We also have Democrats trying to shut down the government today. Let's listen to Tim Burchett. He's a good guy. Let's listen to what he has to say about it.
Congressman, why do you think Democrats are trying to shut down the government?
Because I think they're trying to inflict as much pain in a political type situation, and that's very pitiful. And also, they want to shut down Doge because it's getting very close to home, and they know it. They're getting calls from their big contributors saying, hey, man, we're getting this federal money, and y'all getting ready to cut it off. We're not going to be able to feed the trough, the campaign trough.
He's 100% right. That's exactly what's happening. Also, the Fed needs to lower rates. So James E. Thorne, our favorite Canadian economist, said in 2018 the economy was slowing because of the Trump 1.0 trade war. As of today, the Fed was wrongly focused on inflation. The FFR, the federal funds rate, was 2.33. The FFR was below R. The 5-year and 5-year forward inflation expectation was at levels seen today, 2.13%. Fed cuts rate on Christmas Eve. Let's look at it this time, though. So it's not Christmas Eve, but let's look at this. Today, the federal funds rate is 4.33. People are asking me, why would the Fed need to lower rates if bond yields are coming down? Because it's constrictive. If your federal funds rate is higher than what your inflation rate is, you should be loosening. You should be loosening to boost the economy, right? You don't want to have an extra restrictive at a time of slowing. Otherwise, you could create a recession, which is something that Powell was very concerned about doing for a while, and he wanted a soft landing. Now he doesn't seem to give a shit that Trump is in office. But today, the federal funds rate is 4.33. Debt to GDP is closer to 125%. Deficits is 7%. And a wall of sovereign debt needs to be refinanced. So we're in a worse off situation, and we're taking longer to lower rates. All very interesting. But here's a bright note, guys, because you live in America. You don't live in Europe where they want to confiscate all your fucking savings and force you into a CBDC so that they can get you to comply like all the good Chinese have to do. Again, if you've ever watched Dark Mirror, you'll know that actually in China right now, you can have your social credit score get demoted and you can be banned from traveling on planes, banned from traveling on high-speed trains, and have issues getting loans, have issues getting jobs, all those things. That's what Europe wants to inflict, or that's what the European Union wants to inflict on Europeans. But here in the States, we're going the opposite route. Let's listen to this.
How about no tax on tips? How about no tax on overtime? How about no Social Security? How about all those things? These are the kind of thoughts that will change America. I know what his goal is. No tax for anybody who makes less than $150,000 a year. That's his goal.
So
that won't be me. Unfortunately, because of you guys, I have a big enough income where I'm still going to get taxed. So that sucks for me. But for the rest of the people out there that are making under $150,000 a year individually, wouldn't it be fucking awesome if you didn't have to pay taxes to the federal government? Wouldn't that be a great way to build your wealth up and get to a level where I'm at, or people that are higher than me? If you didn't have to pay massive taxes as a middle income earner, or somebody that's high middle income, wouldn't that be great to where you could actually get rich? I think this is brilliant. I think this is the path we need to go down. Representative Jim Jordan said inflation down, gas prices down, mortgage rates down, airline prices down. Confidence in America's future is up. I agree with this, actually. We're going to be talking more about this in a second. But I do think that confidence among CEOs and confidence, again, we're going to see growth here. We're going to see manufacturing growth. People don't want to pay the tariffs, and they want to move business to the United States. And if they can do some kind of like, hey, we're working on building it out, please don't tariff the shit out of us, I'm sure they're going to do that. And the president will find a way to be able to negate tariffs for people that are actively building in the country. Palantir 3030, Adam, what's up, bro? I'm sure Jesse, it will be stepped up. First 150,000, no taxes. I'm sure for Jesse, it will be stepped up. Yeah, maybe that would be good. That would be a good way of doing it, right? Like it would be a good way of doing it to where like the taxes don't kick in till 150, and then after that they do. I don't care either way though, man. I would like to see more people rising up in the economy. I think that's a good thing, and I would love to see something like that. Also, Chuck Schumer, this is funny, just announced the Senate Democrats will block the House past CR and shut down the government. So that starts tomorrow, right? If there's not an agreement met, the government shuts down tomorrow. There's good and bad things. The narrative is probably going to be prevailingly bad, at least initially. Again, there's rundown of the Treasury general account that can actually end up providing liquidity. But if you look at it at face value, it looks bad. And so that's probably what people will run with initially. It's kind of funny, though. The Senate has passed the bill to keep the government open, and now the bill heads to President Biden's desk. Even a partial shutdown would be extreme. House Republicans would have threatened services for moms and kids, hurt your veterans, hurt farmers, home buyers, and so much more. That was the last time that we were looking at a major government shutdown, and Chuck Schumer talked about how bad it would be to even do a partial one. Why would you do a partial one? But now he seems to be okay with it. It's funny how things change. I put the Democrats definitely won't win any points with this move, but I'm also not surprised. Again, that's just Schumer being Schumer. And also, I wanted to go over this real quick. So M2 is an archaic measure, Michael Howell. So this is Peter Dwan, I think. He said, for those who don't know, Michael Howell is the macroeconomist to follow if you're a Bitcoiner. Recently, Michael went on Nick Bati's podcast, The Bitcoin Layer, to discuss global liquidity. While the episode is filled with a bunch of good stuff, one of the points that he made was that M2 is just not a good metric. So we're seeing a lot of this where people are talking about M2. I talked before about how it has to be put to work. This does a good job of kind of explaining what that process means. So it says M2 is a traditional money supply metric that tracked liquidity through bank deposits and near money assets. Historically, when economies were more reliant on traditional banking, M2 was a useful gauge of liquidity because most of the money flowed through retail bank deposits. So everybody that's talking about the M2 and saying that it's immediately going to curve up, it doesn't have to. It doesn't have to if it's money that's not being put to work. And again, this is something that where people don't look at this metric as much as they used to. Number two here, he said, why is M2 no longer relevant? The financial system has evolved dramatically over the past few decades. Today, the most financial transactions don't occur through bank deposits, but rather through credit markets. So this is a thing that Michael Howell talks about a lot. Credit markets are the key driver right now. It's giving credit because we're such an indebted society, whether you look at the governments, whether you look at commercial real estate, whether you look at small businesses, and again, with these high rates, whether you look at individuals, especially, the subprime class, the bottom 30, +% of America, these guys get hurt, okay? They've been hurt by higher interest rates. And so we're very much a credit debt market now. Not just like, oh, hey, everybody's got money, you can look at M2 and that's how it works. It's because we're so indebted across the world that M2 has less relevance than it used to have. And that's why we look at Michael Howell for liquidity. He's actually pretty bearish for the first half of this year. And if anything, he sounds like he's getting bearish heading through the entire year. I'm going to disagree with him on this because I think, again, so many good things. I think by the end of May, sounds like by the end of May, we should get a lot of those tax benefits that we're talking about. I think people front run those, and that's not that far away. I also think we have our first rate cut in May, and that's not that far away. So again, like 2 months, if we're talking about, well, for the rate cuts, we're talking about what, like 6 weeks, 7 weeks, and then a little over 2 months, and we'll have these bills passed and on the president's desk, and we'll be looking at people that are in a much better situation because we'll have the tariff, the big worries about the tariffs behind us. We'll have again just a much more pro-growth policy. We'll probably have a bunch of announcements from corporations and businesses that are moving to America in order to be able to avoid tariffs and also to be able to build here because of all the discounts and all the benefits that it entails. So I think this will get better, but again, just remember, and you could go through this whole thing. I posted it. Check it out. Here's his name. But don't just look at these M2 charts that a lot of people are posting right now, where they're like, Bitcoin's going to boom because M2 go up. I don't think it's accurate. I don't think it's accurate to look at it that way. And the last thing we want to do is not be accurate. Oh, I got to refresh my bookmarks because they got weird again. 1 second here. Let me see what we got here. Did I already talk about that? I did. Okay. Let's keep going. All right, there's the Michael Howell one. Here's another one. This should wake up the Fed. So let's listen to this real quick. Let's listen to what Michael Howell had to say in his interview yesterday.
Looking at what's going on in US money markets right now. Now, this ought to be a wake-up call for the Federal Reserve. And let me just sort of sift through what's going on here. This is looking at the SOFR, which is a repo rate, less Fed funds spread.
Good morning.
And the tram lines on the diagram indicate where you'd expect the normal range to be. And what we keep seeing is a blowout increasingly above that upper tram line. Now, if you look at if you can make up the dates and where you get the pickup in volatility, is about the beginning of 2024, around the sort of, let's say, 2/3 of the way into that chart. But basically, something like 70% of all of those
got to get better at labeling the date ranges in these.
Fed funds spread have occurred since July of last year. So you're looking at increasing tensions.
Yeah.
Now, the Federal Reserve should be paying attention to that, and they should be taking less liquidity out of financial markets. And therefore, we've got to start to look for a world where QE begins to restart. Now, there is no indication they're going to do that. In fact, there's every indication they may not.
We'll talk about it a little
because
bit.
The Federal
Vincent,
Reserve,
what's up, dude?
speaks about
Thanks for the $5,
containing the size of the balance sheet, either keeping a cap relative to GDP, which is nonsensical, or even worse, actually going back to historic sizes of the balance sheet, back in 2008 or slightly beyond that.
So I'll try and interpret here. So essentially what he's saying is when we're looking at this SOFR dash FF, he's talking about he's saying that we're getting low on collateral. And this shows signs of stress. Again, like we talk about credit spreads and all this other stuff. It just shows signs of stress in the market. And it's something the Fed should be paying attention to, because the Fed should make sure that we're not getting in a situation where we're overly tight. But again, we are overly tight. We still had quantitative tightening going on. And so what Howell's saying is we should be doing quantitative easing. We should be easing up on the economy, because right now the official Fed rate is higher than what we're seeing in the 2-year, higher than what we're seeing in the 10-year. And so we went from this extreme where they cut rates too quickly, supposedly, even though it was probably at the right pace, but it was ahead of what the markets were thinking, right? We were only going to get one rate cut in 2025, guys. That's what they said before. Now it's like 3.5. And I think that's gonna, if we get a low PPI today, I think that's gonna go to 4. And I don't know if we are gonna get a low PPI. We'll see how it's calculated. There's probably gonna be a lot to dig through. But again, market expectations have changed a lot. You want to be ahead of that. The Fed is supposed to be ahead of that. And again, what we just saw from our other Canadian economists is that the Fed has worse conditions this time. And last time they started easing in December, and they haven't even started now, and we're in March. So what he's telling you is the Fed isn't giving signs that they're in an easing condition. I think it's some of this is political in nature. I think Powell does not like Trump, and I think that's fogging his vision. I hope I'm wrong, and I hope he changes his tune really, really quickly, because I think we're going to need it. I shouldn't say need it, but I think we should have it. I think it's going to be a more painful route without it. I think either way we end up doing well. The Fed is woke. We know that, what was it, over 93 or 92% of donations coming from Fed officials were to the Democratic Party, right? Because this stuff is public information. So we know that the Fed is super woke. We know they're very left-leaning, and it's problematic. Powell is not impressed with the Fed, and so he thinks that it's incredibly problematic. That the Fed is still talking about like these tightening measures, isn't talking about relieving those, isn't talking about going into QE phase, isn't talking about loosening up conditions. And he's doing that behind the shield of tariffs, right? Tariffs being a big concern, even though they're really going to be guided to be reciprocal and then get what we want, and they'll be very short-lived. He doesn't give a fuck about that. And so this is Michael Howell calling out Papa Powell. That's what this is. So, and I get that Michael Howell is hard to understand. He uses a bunch of different acronyms, their terminology that relate to the Fed, which is also, very, it's not easily seen through, right? It's like staring through obsidian and trying to see the other side. So yeah, it's just terms and things that you have to learn, but that's essentially what he's saying. He's saying the Fed is pulling some bullshit games right now. Let's keep rolling on. The Kobayashi letter said the U.S. dollar is plummeting. It's actually up just a hair today, 0.22%. But again, he's right. If we look at the measured move here, let's just look at this real fast, okay? So let's just look at what the dollar has done over a shorter period of time. So we went from over here, and I'll just tell you what that range is, and then we got down to here. So the dollar dropped 6.3% in a period of a little over 2 months. And that is actually a pretty strong move. I mean, again, we've had worse, right? If you look over here, December of 2020, or September to December, January of 2022, we had an even steeper drop, like roughly twice the move, right? But here's the important thing to note. This over here, when this happened, this was the end of our bear market, our recession in tech. And yes, it was a recession. If you have Amazon, Facebook, and Tesla down by 75%, you're in a recession, okay? I just want to throw that out there. And again, Palantir was down like 80 plus, and just a bunch of other companies just wiped out, utterly wiped out across tech. So, but that was it. But when these were dropping, that was signaling the end as we were seeing liquidity increase and things get better. Michael Howell's a little more bearish right now over the short term, because again, I think he thinks the Fed isn't playing ball, and he believes that these tariffs could cause some short-term pain too, and end up constricting the economy even more. Tariffs in combination with Doge kind of acting as austerity, tightening up financial conditions. I've got to agree, over the short term, he's probably right. But again, so these are some of the concerns that he has. Let me just pop this back over here again. But on a bright note, we were talking about this before, oil is still crashing. It found support right where we said it was going to. Let me just get rid of this real quick, or I'll move it since we have a different range now anyway. But what I'm predicting, and I know this sounds crazy, is that by the end of this year, we could see oil in the 30s. I know that sounds absolutely nuts. It's the measured move for this. It's the measured move from, I remember when I called the top over here. Top over here, especially after this big wick where everybody was like, oil's going to 200, guys, $200 a barrel of oil. We're in an inflationary spiral and the world's going to fall apart. And I'm like, nope, this wick tells you it's over. And then we got over here and we started to reject. It was very easy to see that we were going down. So people over here were screaming in March of 2022, we're screaming $200 a barrel. And then what happened? By May of 2023, a little over, 14 months later, we were down to $63 from 130. So the price dropped by 50%. I think those same kind of slowing conditions are happening right now. Again, strong parallels to October, November of 2022 and what we're seeing right now as far as the economical situation. And if anything, we're more tight than we were then. So I strongly believe that that this is something where we're going to see that kind of really massive drop. And again, support kicks in if you look at the technicals here a little more once we get down into the 50s, low 50s. Sean said, Tesla working with Baidu in China for FSD. This is required by the CCP, not because Tesla can't execute. I don't know what you mean by that. Maybe you got a post or something that you can link. I can tell you that, FSD is not easy, right? It requires a neural network and a bunch of proprietary stuff that we're not going to give the Chinese government. So yeah, I don't think, I think if anything, Baidu would end up purchasing FSD from Tesla. You got to remember, guys, less than 2 years ago, the CEO of Baidu said that full self-driving was bullshit and that they had no plans to work on it. Now they have the eye of God that's going to surpass Tesla. It's all kind of funny, really, if you think about it. And also too, like there's a lot of these other ones where they're like, look, ours is better than Tesla. They literally have people sitting in their little fucking go-karts driving these things remotely. So they partnered. Okay, well, send me a link in X. Did that just get announced today? But yeah, send me a link in X if you could, and then we'll take a look. So again, the dollar's dropping hard. We like that. It's good for our economy. Oil's dropping. We like that. It's good for our economy. These are some of the promises that Trump had given us. Lots to talk about on that front today. War in Ukraine, all this stuff. Just lots of stuff happening. I said nowhere to go but up as rates comes down, whatever. Pending home sales have fallen to an all-time low. And they are right. This only goes back to 2019. Let me actually look over here too. And again, guys, fear and greed right now, we're sitting in these low levels, maybe another couple weeks to a month where we could hang out in here. But beyond that, unless we're at the beginning of 2022, into 2021, which I don't think we are because all the conditions look different. They look like we're at the end of it, like we've talked about. I think that this will be short-lived and we'll end up going up again. But I do want to look here. So pending home sales, let's just look at it here. Again, I pay for these memberships so that you guys don't have to, right? That's one of the things I try to do to give back to you. I listen to FundStrat every day. I pay $80 a month for Michael Howell. There's $250 for FundStrat, even though admittedly I don't have to pay that one because I've got so many fucking active referrals. I think I'm in the 50s or something. So I can't really say that I pay for that one. I would, but they're not making me pay for it because you guys keep subscribing. But this one, I don't remember what this is, but it's at least $100 or something like that. I don't know. But I pay for a lot of these so that I can help you guys out so you don't have to do it. All right, let's look at this real quick. So this is the pending home sales index. And let's go, how far out can we go? Yeah, it goes all the way back to 2001 is the start of this. And again, we are, like that headline said, pending home sales hit record. Really, they've been in the record zone, right? They've been in the record zone since about August of 2023. Is that right? Outside of the pandemic, May-ish of 2023, roughly, outside of the pandemic, home sales have been non-existent. Again, when rates drop and we get some liquidity opening up, which I think is going to happen a lot later in this year, these things are going to look good and we're going to go up. Is it over for the BTC bull cycle? I don't believe that at all. There's a ton of metrics I look at that show that it's not even remotely close. Could it be on hiatus for another month? Sure. But I don't believe it's over. And anyway, if anything, it's coiled for a spring, right? Like, let's just look here real quick. So what's MicroStrategy down right now? And this one had a pretty decent pop, I would actually argue. But right now in pre-market, it's down 52%. So it's coiled and waiting to go higher. This is what happens every cycle, guys. It might happen in varying degrees right now. There's a lot of like macroeconomic and geopolitical headwinds that are in front of us right now in this particular point in time. But no, this is normal. If you came into 2017, you would have seen 35% drops like every month or two, like every couple months. I can't say it two. Every like 2 to 3 months, there would be a 30 to 35% drop. It was painful as fuck, right? But this is not nearly that bad. It's just everything leveraged. Like the miners got utterly destroyed over the last year. I didn't see that coming, but it did come. And like right now, look at this right here, 61% on Mara, 61%. This thing's down. These guys are getting near 50,000 Bitcoin. And if you believe Bitcoin holds value, these guys have a ton of it. They're by far the biggest miner with a Bitcoin stack, and they're down 61% from where they were at. And they're not even valued. They're basically valued at their holdings. It's fucking ridiculous. And look at this, CleanSpark, 67% down on this one. So these things have just been utterly decimated. So no, I don't think it's over. I think if anything, we're coiled like a spring, and that's why I moved more money yesterday. I posted this to my subs. I moved more money from BITX, which gave me a 2x the underlying asset for Bitcoin, over to calls and Mara and CleanSpark because they were down a lot yesterday. Like some of them were down like 15, 20%, and then they were down the day before that too. So they were just really incredibly depressed. And so I tried to take advantage of that and buy some more. We'll see how it works over the short term. It might suck, but I'll just use my $500,000 in TLT, which I'll be sitting on. I honestly, guys, I might even go into like a dark mode for trading for a week, 2 weeks, or even just until the tariffs. I don't even know how much I'm going to trade. I'm just going to work out and do other shit. But I'll probably just let the remainder of my TLT just sit and stew, because I do think that we're going to see rates dropping more over the short term, and I want to be able to calculate. Oh, sorry. What, PPI? Yeah, PPI is coming. We got 5 minutes. 5 minutes and 25 seconds. So I am keeping an eye on that. So we're still good there. But yeah, so I think mortgages are going to come around. I think we're going to see a lot more pending home sales here in the future. Also, Income Shark said market volatility isn't that wild compared to what we've seen over the past 4 years. Puts and shorts are at record highs. So it's no wonder that everyone is fear and doom posting. So again, we know that puts are at record highs, even though volatility right now, people are all worried about, oh God, guys, look at the VIX. Look at the VIX. It's so scary. No, this was scary, bitch, over here. This was scary in the pandemic. This over here was scary in 2024, July. That was scary when the VIX just started to go fucking crazy. Right now, this is not scary, remotely scary. And I've shown you guys trends that show that the VIX ends up coming down and down and down. Actually, I think I have it right over here. Let me, if I can find it. Where did I just put it? Oh, there it is. So again, I've shown you where we have multi-year trends where the VIX goes really, really crazy high, and then it trends down for years. And then again, really crazy high. And when I'm talking years over here, what is this? The 2008 Great Financial Crisis. So this thing really trended down to lows before it started building back up into higher highs again, all the way out to 2014, or maybe you could call this one. But really, I look at peaks. I look at really high numbers. So like over here, September of 2015, grinded down to November of 2017. Great time to make a bunch of money. Over here, we've got February 2018. Again, I think this is when the Fed started raising rates just to test the markets. Did not work out well. We got crushed into here, or maybe it was over here, whatever, November of 2018. Doesn't matter, though. We went from a very high peak in the VIX down for years, again, 2019 into 2019. So this was another 2-year move. And then over here, in the pandemic, again, massive peak in the pandemic, and then we grinded all the way down to July of 2024. And again, we had a rough patch, especially over here. You can see this patch right over here, where we had a tough time, especially again in the technology sector and Bitcoin and all that stuff. But again, this time is totally different. At the end of 2021, we were raising rates at the most aggressive rate in history. This time, we're drawing down. We're loosening conditions. So this one's going to be a lot different. My take, I hope PPI is low. That's my take. I don't pretend to know what this number is going to be, because it's even more like, it's more obtuse than what we see with the CPI reporting. So we'll see what it ends up being. I hope it's low, though. I think that'll be a good sign that will help ensure that the Fed actually believes that they should start doing something different, or whether they believe it or not, know that they're going to have massive political pressure to start doing something. Otherwise, again, concepts like abolishing the Fed will become more likely in the future, especially if you got to realize we got 2 years until midterms. If Trump turns this economy around and he does everything that he's talking about doing, and we're looking at a more stable United States while Europe is in massive decline, stealing people's savings to try and pay for war efforts that they shouldn't even be a part of right now, where they should be working for peace, because the last thing you need when you have an overextended economy and your debt to GDP is really high, and they're worse than us. Most of Europe is worse than the United States, and China is way worse. The last thing you want to do is create a lot more expense. You don't want war. You don't want that. And Russia can't even have it right now anyways. They are not the superpower they used to be. So to arm up and talk about almost $1 trillion in spending, again, it's going to be ugly for Europe. And it's not something they should be doing at all. Let's look over here. We got some comments. Agreed, Jesse. The markets survived a worldwide shutdown in 2022. A couple of tariffs making us a bunch of money is nothing to worry about. And here's the thing. I don't even think they're going to do that. I think a lot of the tariff stuff, what it'll do, it won't necessarily make us direct revenues. I think what'll end up happening is, again, he's doing reciprocal for a reason. And he's telling people, hey, if you get ahead of this and work out a deal with us, and we'll look at a post a little bit later after PPI comes out in about 1 minute, from Keir Starmer. Keir Starmer and the UK are trying to get a deal going before these broad-based tariffs. And there's going to be a lot of Europe. There's going to be a lot of major superpowers around the world that are trying to do that same thing so that they can avoid tariffs. And you're going to see a lot of companies starting to move too. So the benefits that we're going to get from it, I think, will far outweigh anything else. We did get industrial production in Mexico, negative 2.9%, worse than consensus and forecast. Again, looking like a slowdown to me. Also, Hong Kong industrial production, 1% versus a forecast of 1.8. That looks like a slowdown to me. So we're not seeing a lot of good data points that are pointing towards, whoa, better worry about inflation. Do you think we get a ceasefire deal from Russia this week? I doubt it. It seems too quick, but you never know. Russia did put out their guidelines. They're not much different than before. It's we get to keep a lot of the territory that we've gained. Basically almost everything where the lines are right now, and then you can't join NATO. And then they don't want peacekeeping forces from Europe in there too. And I actually think that's a good idea, because I think all that does is draw Europe into a regional war that they shouldn't have. As long as we're not seeing, let's refresh. As long as we're not seeing Russia try and take over Ukraine again, then if that happens, then you should have forces running in right away. But they shouldn't just be hanging out there at the border. It's just a step towards World War III. All right, let me close this down and look, see how bad the data is. Core PPI, negative 0.1%, guys, versus 0.3 and 0.2. Way lower than expected on core. Way lower than expected. PPI, month over month, 0% versus a previous of 0.4, consensus of 0.3, and forecast of 0.3. Way fucking lower than expected. Initial jobless claims, 220K, lower than consensus and forecast. That's good. Continuing jobless claims, 1870, lower than consensus and forecast. That's good. Core PPI, year over year, 3.4% versus 3.5 and 3.5. That's good. All of this data looks good. Let's look. PPI Feb, 147.9. I should do this too. I actually don't even have, got so much going on today. I haven't even refreshed my market screens down here. I'm going to pull that up just so I have it in front of me. And let's look here. PPI year over year, 3.2%. For Feb, 3.2 versus 3.3 and 3.4 forecast and consensus. PPI X food, energy, and trade. So if we take out food, energy, and trade, it's 3.3. It's still 0.1% lower than forecast. PPI X food and energy. Okay, that's just month over month. Let's see if Rick Santelli has anything here too to talk about. This is interesting though. I'm seeing the 2-year going down. It looks like the 10 years going down. Oil's dropping. I don't see too much in the way of market movement though. Let's listen to what Rick has to say. But these are good numbers in my opinion, guys. These are good numbers, and we'll see. Again, we've got the looming government shutdown, so I don't think we're out of the waters yet. But this is a good start.
Welcome back to Squawk Box. Rick Santelli here live at CME HQ with February Producer Price Index, the wholesale version of inflation. On the headline, expecting up 0.3, up 0, goose egg, unched. Boy, that is progress. We haven't had a number that low. Well, we equaled it in July of last year when we had another 0. To find a lower number, you're back to October of 23 at minus 0.4. Strip out the all-important food and energy, down 0.1. Down 0.1. That's 0.4 lower than expectations. Down 0.1 also equals July of last year. Find a lower number, you're going back to COVID times, April of 2020. Now, let's take the ex-food, energy, and trade. That comes in at up 0.2. That's a 10th light to expectations. Up 0.2. How does that fit in? Well, that would actually be the lowest since it was up 0.1 in November of last year. All right, let's take a step back into macro. Year over year on the headline, 3.2. That's a 10th cooler than expected. 0.3 less than 3.5 in the rearview mirror. And 3.2 would be the smallest month over month since 2.9 in November of last year. Ex-food and energy year over year comes in at 3.4. 3.4, that's 1/10 lighter than expectations, 0.2 lighter than the rearview mirror. 3.4 equals where we were in November of last year. To find a lower number, you're in September of 24. And finally, the sixth part of this PPI complex comes in at ex-food, ex-energy, ex-trade. That comes in at 3.3. 3.3, that would be 1/10 lighter than expectations, 1/10 lighter than the 3.4 in the rearview mirror. And to find a lower number, you go to 3.2 in April of last year. To summarize, the market has gone down a bit in yields, but it's kind of right back where it was with respect to a 10-year at 432.
Oh, he's right.
That's
it did
up
bounce.
1
I think the
basis
tariff
point.
talk bounced
And probably the reason is the progress on these numbers. But as I pointed out, we've kind of been there, done that with these numbers last year. So we are making progress with respect to going from the end of last year to the beginning of this year. But we're not really making progress on the big picture. But certainly inflation isn't getting worse. No doubt this is a bit cooler than expected.
It's way cooler.
It's definitely cooler than our last look of PPI. Now, let's go to initial claims. 220,000. That's down 2,000 from a slightly revised
this is good enough.
222.
He doesn't really have anything I care about. Why, Jesse? Get to the point. The market's open. Doesn't care anymore. Yeah. So exactly. Yeah. So I said, so Gary said, hey, Trump talked about tariffs this morning, and he did. It looks like he talked about, let me just pull it up over here. It looks like he talked about going after Europe. And again, that's the hand that he's playing right now. So if you guys don't know this, Canada was talking about getting tough on tariffs again. And they said they're going to work with the European Union to kind of gang up on the United States. That's a horrible idea. It's not going to work at all, just like none of the other stuff has worked. But so Trump is being aggressive. This morning he said the European Union, one of the most hostile and abusive taxing and tariffing authorities in the world, which was formed for the sole purpose of taking advantage of the United States, has just put a nasty 50% tariff on whiskey. If this tariff is not removed immediately, the U.S. will shortly place a 200% tariff on all wines, champagnes, and alcohol products coming out of France and the EU and representing countries. This will be great for the wine and champagne business in the United States. So 50%, hey, we'll 4X that shit. And we'll make it 200%. So the 2-year did drop earlier. I said that it was actually in negative territory. It has went back up now and is up 0.68% and climbing. That's probably not going to help out TLT too much today. We'll see if it has any movement. I didn't look at the 10-year right now. And so far, TLT is down 0.31%. So maybe the 20-year is going to be okay with this. Maybe it's the shorter end of the curve that feels the effect. Very possible. But we want this. We want these kind of messages to happen and we want them to happen daily because eventually the markets will become immune to it. They'll become immune to it and they won't care anymore. And so the more of this we get, the less the algos will care. They'll dial down. They won't sell off as much and it will get better. So I'm actually okay. I want to see every day this kind of shit happening. And if Europe wants to play hardball, we should play even harder. I think 4Xing those tariffs and going after everything they have is fucking brilliant. And we'll see how long Europe lasts on that move. And if they dial it up again, if there's anything you guys hopefully have learned, it's that Trump will do even more. And what's happened so far with every fucking tariff thing that he's doing, he ends up winning. and he ends up getting what he wants. And that will continue to happen. So I actually think the more of this kind of rhetoric we get will just make it to where the markets don't even think about it anymore. That's what I'm looking for. Actually, champagne is only made in France. Outside of France, is called sparkling wine. Sure, I think they're covering all of it. And Moet, actually, when I was in France, that we went there and got to hang out in their little wine rooms underground that went on for miles and miles and miles. And that was cool. That was really cool. But you know what? If those guys want to be able to sell their shit in the United States, I don't think the 200% tariffs are going to help them at all. It would be devastating to their business. Also, I was going to go over this. It kind of doesn't feel as exciting anymore with knowing that PPI just fell through the floor. But Supercore CPI month over month is down sharply. Lowest numbers that we've seen since the end of 2022. Does this sound familiar? Is this just like me saying the same shit over and over again? And the only other one outside of that goes back to roughly the middle of 2021. And that's for the month over month. The Supercore CPI year over year again continued to fall. This breaks it down by like transportation services, medical services, all these things. But I told you guys, Truflation is the representation of what is coming. And these numbers that we're looking at, guys, they don't factor in this. They don't factor in this massive fucking drop from the 2s to the 1s. They don't factor that shit in at all. So believe me, inflation is coming down. French wine is overrated, pretentious. I got to say, Moet, where we went for their champagne, was actually fucking delicious. But yeah, I don't know. I'm not a connoisseur of fine wines or any of that shit. But I did like their champagne. Palantir 3030, Adam, what's up, bro? That's what people don't get. The tariffs paid by consumers, sure. However, USA makes the same products. And it ends up, it has a lot of positive impacts. So again, it helps business that we have here where people are buying homegrown instead of getting it somewhere else. It also, the exchange rates usually differ too. So like if we put a bunch of tariffs on the European Union, their currency is probably going to end up strengthening, and we'll see weakening in the US dollar. And so it will be offset too in their exchange rate. And then at the same time, the companies end up bearing the burden of this because they end up having reductions in sales and lost margins. And so they end up wanting the governments to comply to these tariffs. And we're the biggest fish in the pond. Again, 78% of Canada's exports come to this fucking country. There's no way for them to offset. Even with Europe, there's no way for them to offset the trade that they get from here. And they don't want to start trading with Europe on all this stuff because then you have transportation costs and increased shipping costs. We're right across the fucking border. There are so many reasons why we're going to end up winning on these tariffs. But again, they could be painful for a couple more weeks. These things can happen, right? 4-2, guys. We still have 3 weeks essentially, closer to 2.5, when we get full tariffs. And there's going to be more noise before it gets quieter. There's going to be more noise before it gets quieter. Yeah, and there's going to be, and so imagine if you're looking at posts right now, guys, and you own a wine company in California or somewhere in the U.S. There's a bunch where I live in the Midwest. There's a bunch of wine companies around here. The ground is actually quite fertile, and the wines are delicious. And again, there's other parts of Central and South America too. People will buy locally to avoid these higher prices. They will. This will benefit us. And again, yeah, egg prices are tumbling. Everything's tumbling. I'm super stoked with the direction that we're heading down for inflation. I think it's going to be really good for the markets. Here's the full video too. I think it's the full video. So here's Jack Farley. So here's some of the highlights, some of the key bullet points. Liquidity squeeze. Unless central banks stimulate, we're going to see a squeeze in liquidity. So we could see more downside pressure until it gets better. Again, I think the next couple of weeks are you just got to be ready for more pain. It doesn't have to happen, but you should be ready for it. He said funding pressures and money markets appear. Economy is slowing down. I agree with all those statements. Michael Howell's brilliant. But again, we talked about this yesterday. A huge bear, Bravos Research. He went by another name. I can't even remember. He changes his name every once in a while. But he said that ISM manufacturing, he said, look at this. This is a curve over. This isn't like the dot-com bubble. This isn't like the 2008 great financial crisis. This isn't like the pandemic in 2020. We're actually seeing ISM picking up and manufacturing starting to pick up. This is good. Does your TLT price target stay the same, or are you optimistic? I'm still optimistic. TLT is actually, it's down 0.4% today, so it got hit a little bit. it's maybe acting close to what the 10-year is doing right now. So it could go lower. But again, that's why I sold $250,000 worth of it. Roughly, actually, I'm probably higher than that because I sold a little bit yesterday too. So probably like $360,000 worth over the last several days, probably up 4% on average, a little bit lower than I was before because of the stuff, maybe 3.75 or something like that. But I actually still think TLT will do good too. I think the problem right now is the tariff talk. It's crushing us on the bond market right now because, again, like I don't know who it was a second ago. Maybe it was Alex. I don't know. It was Gary. He said, because you could see the bond market, you could see it rolling over in the 2 and the 10-year. And then people, I think, started to realize the post about the tariffs. And then that changed immediately. And they started to go up. At least the 2-year started to climb pretty aggressively, and the 10-year started to follow it a little bit slower. So I do think that I don't know how good of a hedge it's going to be over the next 2 weeks. I don't know how good of a hedge it's going to be over the next 2 weeks, which kind of sucks. That part sucks. I would like to see it be a strong one over the next 2 weeks, not a weaker one. But I think once we get past tariff considerations, I think that the 10-year is going to continue to roll over. I really do. And let's look at it real quick. And then we'll get to other stuff because there's a lot to talk about over the next 45 minutes before we get to the bell. Just give me 1 second. Let me pull this up. All right, so here's the 10-year in the U.S. Again, we hit the 200. We bounced off of it. We were underneath of it, but again, it's not crazy that we're trying to attempt to bounce here. But again, lower, high, lower, high, lower, or I should say this. After this, lower, high, right? Like we got a wick, but it doesn't really count, at least on the monthly. It didn't get any higher. And again, the big thing to keep an eye on, guys, with the 10-year that makes me super positive about it is that we've got a divergence on it that goes back to the beginning of 2022. That wants to pull it down. And so again, I don't see this thing moving up in any major way. There's just no way for it to. The tariffs are not going to be the inflation that people think they're going to be. So if we can get past that, I think it's going to be a lot better. Let's look at the fear and greed index this morning. Let's see how all these things are sitting. We're at a 20, so we're still in extreme fear. I think we kind of looked at that, but let's look at the crypto one and see how it's doing. Crypto's at a 45, so it's a little bit more optimistic than it was. But again, you got to remember this thing was sitting off of the lowest levels that we saw since the middle of 2022. Let's get back over here. I don't think we have anything else under this. No, we don't. Oh, no, we do actually. I want to show you this. So this is another one where Income Sharks posted the 4-year presidential stock market cycle. And he said it's pretty consistent no matter what the media biases and political division tells you. Trump, 69% for a 4-year gain. Biden, 60%. Biden, year 1, 25%. Trump, year 1, 20%. Trump, midterm, 34%. Biden, 30%. So again, very consistent as far as the overall gains. You can see Trump wins on his first term. You can see that the inauguration occurs and it pumps into it just like it did more recently here. And then you can see that there was a little bit of downside and then it went up for the next 2 years and did really well. And again, with Biden, it just went up. Like the Biden got elected, the inauguration was good. Again, a little bit of after the inauguration, there seems to be a little bit of a bear, just a really tiny little blip, and then boom, 2 years up. And so the midterm over here, we can see it. So midterms are interesting because by the time the midterm rolls around, again, and you can see this across a lot of it, it's the market has hit before the midterm happens. You get like this little bit of pain here, and the midterm rally is really based on the fact that it does really bad heading into it or after it. So midterms are going to be something we need to think about in a couple of years here because, again, that's maybe where we have a slump unless we're just crushing it. But, yeah, so this is an interesting chart. Again, so what he's saying here is 2-year up, 2-year up, and we're probably going to see a 2-year up again over here. This one did really well. He didn't draw a line here, but we'll probably see another 2-year up over here as well. And again, I think that's totally possible. I think that's probable because by the middle of the year, if we have all these tax breaks, it's going to be huge for the economy. It's going to be massive. Oh, yeah, and this one, I don't know if I covered it already yesterday, but Koosh put this one out. He showed, yeah, I think I did, but I want to show it again just because I think it's so important to reiterate right now with people being in fear levels, is that the last time we had a real trend change, people didn't see it, okay? They didn't see it until like right here, where we went from, this is the US 100 index, I think it says. for we went from like 16.5 or something all the way down to 11. 16.5 to 11, massive drop. Then people are like, oh shit, I'm scared. That was the sign of the trend change. This time, and again, there was apathy all throughout the beginning, months and months and months and months and months. Nobody gave a shit about anything. This time, we're starting off real hard down. We've got all these headwinds in front of us over the next several weeks, and it doesn't look anything like the trend change that we saw in 2022. If anything, it looks like we're working on a bottom. All right, let me just read through chat here. Tyler, are you still buying BTC proxies, CleanSpark? I did that yesterday. Actually. So the leaps were just wiped out. Everybody gave up over the last 2 days on Mara and CleanSpark. They gave up. So CleanSpark had that nice little bump from getting the S&P 600 or whatever inclusion. But it just got destroyed otherwise afterwards. So it did well before, but then it just got destroyed. Both of the leaps were just wiped out. I am choosing out further time frames of September and November though, because I believe the latter part of the year is going to be a lot better. And so I moved some BITX into that. I've got about another 100,000+ that I could move in. If we get any kind of major pull down today, I'll probably take advantage of that. I don't think we are. I think we're just going to chop, but we'll see. Again, we had a great day yesterday across a lot of the market. Tesla was up 7.6%. Palantir was up 7.17%. Hood was up 7.04%. SoFi was up 5.86%. There were just a lot of things that did really well. ArcG was up a little bit, 2.32%. There were a lot of things, though, that performed well in markets yesterday. Chips did really well. AMD up 4.16%. NVIDIA up 6.42%. SMCI up 4%. So, again, they did really good. I think it's an okay hold, but here's the thing. It's 2x. Sorry, to clarify what I'm talking about. Joshua said, is BITX still a good hold? Yes, but it's a lower multiplier versus what CleanSpark and Mara are right now. Okay? It's a lower multiplier. Am I still holding those, the 37 June calls? Yes, I am, but I don't have a high degree of confidence in them. I've been buying into, September 2025 calls. I think was it a 20 strike? I think it was a 20 strike. Because my confidence level is lower on those, so I don't want to buy the same thing. I want to extend out my target to what I believe the max of the bull market's going to be. And so I chose with CleanSpark. And maybe I can pull it over real quick here. I chose November. There's a November of 2021. With them, I went a little further out. $20 strike, November of 2021. That's what I've been buying into. And then I have another one that was July 18th, $25 strike, so much lower than the 37s that I was doing too for July, but I'm not adding to that one. I'm adding for further out time frames with lower strike points. And if these others come around, like if we get a big bounce, like let's say by May or June, all of a sudden we bounced, and let's say June, right? Because one of these calls good for July 18th. So let's say by June we've bounced and CleanSpark is in the 20s. And I will exit those shorter dated contracts to get the fuck out of them. And I don't know if the 37s might end up being dust if we're only in the 20s by that time. It just depends. Again, it's a matter of it's mathematical formula of time, and then how far away you are from the strike, because you got to be in the money. It really, for these things to be worth anything, intrinsic value, not extrinsic. Extrinsic is the time that you've got in front of you. But intrinsic value, those 37s have to be above that. So I don't have a high degree of confidence on them. And mine are pretty low in value right now. I mean, they're down 88% from where I bought them. So they've been a huge miss. So I don't love the 37s. I like the 20s a lot better. CleanSpark on the 20s seems impossible. Yeah, it's not remotely. You think it's impossible for it to go up like 130%? Yeah, that's not true. Not when it's down, 68% or 67% from where it was a year ago? No, you must not understand how these things work. It's a $2.27 billion cap. Again, Mara and CleanSpark are not trading at high multiples whatsoever. And they've got FASB behind them. And again, it could be one of those things where Q2, the beginning of Q2, could still look ugly. Q1 could not be great for these. And again, some of those might suck. They might go to dust, but I feel really good about the 20s for November. If you've been in this, I'm assuming Akash Are you first cycle on this one? You got to be, right? You sound like your first cycle. Let me know if you've done this more. All right, Gemini Knight. So you're now bearish Clean Spark. I'm bearish Clean Spark. Yeah, I'm bearish Clean Spark. So I put about $50,000 into it yesterday, maybe 80, because I'm so bearish about it. I guess that's the price of not paying you for your coverage, Anthony. Oh, I saw Anthony talking about it. I saw that one. I don't care about any of that. That's all fucking noise to me, man. So what we're talking about in chat, real quickly, let me jump to that. I'll just show it real quick. So, I don't know. Is it Anthony Power? I don't know. So Anthony Power, so Matt Schultz and Anthony Power got in a fight. I don't even know how to fucking find his account. Let me look up Schultz. Maybe Schultz is better. There we go. Maybe I can find it. Or you know what? He probably didn't post it. Yeah, I don't know. They got in a fight yesterday, and there were a bunch of people that were shitting on Clean Spark. This kind of stuff happens every time things are down. People are doing it with Mara too. They're doing it with Iron. They're doing it with all of them, right? They hate the people that they loved previously. Previously, they're like, Matt Schultz, oh, you're so great, dude. We love what you're doing. You're doing the best. You're the best in the world, blah, 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 blah. And I don't know specifically to Anthony Power and what he's talking about. I don't know. It was very like there were cloak and dagger. Like people weren't saying what they wanted to say. I think he was also probably angry by the fact that Schultz had said, hey, we don't pay you to report positively. And so that's like a direct attack against that guy, right? And so then he responded back. That's all noise. I don't give a shit about that. There's always infighting between these things. BITX is probably good here, but here's the thing. It actually had a really good bounce from Bitcoin bouncing from that 76 range roughly up to 84. And it's a lower multiplier. It's a lower multiplier versus these other things, which is why I got the November calls for Clean Spark and why I put more money into September calls for Mara as well. Does it make sense to sell the 37s and roll that money? It might. If you don't, I mean, I don't know how much you have anymore, BGZ. I'm keeping mine. That's just what I do. I don't roll anything over. Oh, thank you. Yeah, I was going to say, I can't find him. Here, I'll try and pull it up and find the conversation. Cave Nove? There we go. All right. So I don't even know if he's going to have it on here. I don't know. I don't know if that conversation is on here. He's probably not excited about that conversation either. So anyway, but essentially Matt Schultz, the CEO of CleanSpark, said that talked shit to Anthony Power because it's basically saying that he doesn't like CleanSpark right now because they didn't pay him to review it. Go to the replies of what? And here? Let's see. Not quite sure what Rex is trying to highlight in the tables for CleanSpark. If you're going to show any form of analysis, show all the miners so that people have a clear and short, medium-term, long perspective. Year to date, CleanSpark is the top performing Bitcoin mining stock, 4.1%. Oh, I don't know. And I don't know about his dispute with Rex. I don't pay attention to any of this shit, guys. I do not care. What I care about is the HODL stack, and I care about what their hash rate is, and I care about what their growth is, and I care about how much they're going to dilute in the future. My favorite miner right now is probably Mara, but it's also a larger one, and I like them the most because, again, by far they have the most Bitcoin stack, and that's what I like. But yeah, I don't care about all this. If you guys want to go through all this, you can go through it on your own time. I do not care. I don't care about noise. I try to focus on signal. That's always going to be the way I am. So there will always be drama between a bunch of different people. I give two shits about it. Real quickly here, I want to jump into geopolitics because it's getting very interesting. So Romania, you've got a bunch of people in the EU talking about how what's going on in Romania is basically the European Union trying to go after countries that are basically pro-Putin as defined by the European Union, and removing their voting rights, not letting them speak in parliament, just all kinds of stuff that's going on. And you got this guy, one of the people that represents the ADF, again, one of the fastest growing parties inside of Germany, especially for a newer one, and just talking about how the NGOs are spreading propaganda and trying to go after countries like Romania. And again, the will of the people is not being represented in Romania the vast majority of the people, they want the new guy to come in and win, who just got barred from being in elections. And then all the details behind that are really sketchy. But when you have the vast majority of the people who don't have a right anymore to decide their future, I think things get weird. Also, we have Donald Trump land. He's in Russia, I believe, right now, working on the details. And I don't know if it's just him. You guys let me know if I'm wrong about this, but I thought I read something earlier where he had landed and he is in Russia trying to work out the deal from the Russian side to end the Ukrainian war. Russia did provide their like basics for what they want to have happen in this war. And if you look over here, areas annexed by Russia in 2014 and then areas occupied by Russia in 2022. So I believe, my understanding is the Luhansk, the Donetsk, the Zaporizhia, and the Kherson regions are ones that they want to maintain. And I don't know if it's if they want to go back to the original lines of 2014, but that's not currently what they control. I think the lines should be drawn very close to where they are now. Yeah, so I don't know. Areas annexed by Russia in 2014. I don't know how that could be, though. I don't know enough about what we're trying to represent in this image because, again, there was Luhansk and Donetsk and Crimea were areas that were controlled in 2014. Oh, I see the line down here. Front line at the time of Russian annexation on September 30th. Okay, so this shows that they've lost land since that time frame. That makes sense. And so I think Russia, I think we should draw the lines very close to where they are right now, which is a loss of land from September 30th, from where Russia originally said this is ours. And they don't want these guys to be a part of NATO, and they don't want troops on their land. I think we should figure out something that's close to this. Vladimir Putin looks like he's trying to play tough. He said Russia will treat Ukrainian soldiers captured in the Kursk region as terrorists. I think that's bullshit. That shouldn't be acceptable terms. But I think, again, he's trying to really look tough in front of his people. And then and he also said foreign mercenaries are not covered by the Geneva Convention. He's got tons of foreign mercenaries from the Russian side, whether they're from North Korea, China, from Middle East, from Africa. He's got tons of them. So that's kind of hypocrisy in motion. But he's trying to look tough in his military uniform, I think, before this thing, just to look like he's going out strong is my take. I still think we're coming to an end on this war very quickly. I don't know if it'll be a week, though. I think it'll be longer than that, but we'll see. Again, and it says Putin has put forward his ceasefire terms. Make no bones about it. If it wasn't for Trump, this wouldn't be happening. I agree with that. Trump brings peace and what we all want. And so, again, I think Putin's trying to look tough. I did want to talk about this, though. And we got about 30 minutes until the bell opens. So Pierre Poilievre versus Mark Carney. So there's Pierre in Canada with all the steelworkers behind him. Mark Carney, this fucking puppet from the World Economic Forum and from the EU, has his own staff sitting behind him trying to pretend like they're fucking steelworkers. Do these guys look like fucking steelworkers? No, they're not. This guy doesn't even live in Canada. He's got 3 fucking passports. He strip mined Brazilian rainforests, and now he's talking about how we need to have zero climate and all this shit going on. It's insane. And I wanted to show you real quickly how popular Macron is and all these globalists are across Europe. Let's listen real quickly. Listen to the excitement for Macron. It's important that you understand how much the people love their leaders. So I think this gets lost in translation when all you see is like a mainstream media posting and showing that he's waving and that there's big crowds there, right? These crowds do not like this motherfucker at all. And again, Romania still yesterday representing massive, large amounts of people. I won't say massive, but large amounts of people protesting what's going on in their country. And again, the popular vote was for the opposition that got banned. Also, Canada is all this stuff that we're seeing, guys, is just fucked up. It's all fucked up, and it's all a part of the World Economic Forum, the International Monetary Fund, this cabal of elites across Europe and the West that want to fall like Rome did for some reason, where we bring in a bunch of immigrants, where we steal farmland from people and build massive estates on it. They want this organized decline. I don't understand it. They want reduction in population. They want, I don't know what they're trying to achieve. I can't honestly get it. But Canada is giving $3.8 million to the Lebanese armed forces to update their mountain warfare ski school to allow for multi-gender occupancy. Why is Canada doing this? Why are they doing anything for Lebanon's armed forces, let alone this? And again, I said the Romans did this kind of stuff near the end of their reign. So it says the state will seize their farms at will. Listen to this. Listen to the shit we're talking about in Europe. Listen to this. This is in the UK.
Of this government can be summarised in 3 sentences. They will halt any farming and environmental scheme on which farmers rely without warning, without consultation, and using criteria they have never before defined. The state
So basically they can take farmland from anybody for any reason whenever they want.
will seize their farmland at will through the compulsory purchase orders that were announced yesterday in the planning bill. And if families have managed to cling on to their farms despite all of this, then Labour will tax them for dying.
This is fucked up. This is really fucked up. Also, we've got CCP Justin Trudeau over here. It says RCMP surveilled Trudeau during a secret meeting with alleged Chinese narco. This is fucking insane. I wish this was community noted. I wish this wasn't real. But it is. Justin Trudeau has been caught in a shocking secret meeting with Paul Jin, an alleged Chinese crime boss and money launderer alongside a Chinese army veteran with direct links to Beijing. The RCMP was surveilling the meeting, which took place behind closed doors near Vancouver International Airport between 2015 and 17. Who is Paul Jin? He is a major figure in underground casinos and money laundering, probably Macau operations, all this shit. Suspected of moving millions through illegal networks tied to Chinese triads and Mexican cartels, facilitating international drug trafficking and corruption. So again, when you hear like, oh, Canada's doing everything it can to get fentanyl out of the country, yeah, fuck that shit. And again, banned from official casinos, yet managed to operate an underground gambling empire worth tens of millions. Why was Trudeau meeting with him? The RCMP clearly saw this meeting as a red flag, so why was the Prime Minister even in the room? Why was a Chinese army veteran with ties to Beijing involved in this secretive meeting? What was discussed behind the closed doors? This is a national security scandal. Again, this is just craziness. This is part of the stuff that's going on right now. Just so many things across the world. It's kind of frightening. And let me see here. So I'm going to refresh because this one got booted, but I want to show you guys some other things. And then we're going to get into Bitcoin and other related news too with Trump. There's a lot to talk about, a lot of geopolitical and macro stuff going on. Again, just the faking of this whole thing and the fact that literally there's a prime minister getting sworn in Canada who doesn't live there, who is literally operating for the European Union. It's frightening. The British royal family getting booed into oblivion. Again, this is what people really think. Again, there's just not a lot of love for these guys. And a Canadian YouTuber with 1.3 million subscribers endorses Pierre Poilievre. I think he's going to win. Also, this is crazy, but according to recent polls, if an election was held in France today, Le Pen would secure a decisive victory. So another right leader, along with Italy, along with Hungary, along with Poland, along with all these countries, Romania and what they're trying to do, you're seeing the EU break apart. I've been calling for this for a while. It is what is happening, and they're fighting hard to prevent this from happening, guys. Listen to this. Crime in Canada now exceeds the U.S. per capita. Violent crime up 44% from 2014 to 2022. Human trafficking nearly tripled. Homicide rates increased by 54%, all because of liberal governments, lenient crime laws, and unvetted mass immigration policies. This is crazy stuff, guys. And again, here, so Mark Carney asked the camera crew at this event to shut off all microphones while he was talking to steelworkers. This little bitch dressed up his fucking Muppets to look like steelworkers, and then he made them turn off everything because he didn't want you to hear what they had to say. The same guy who strip farmed the Brazilian rainforests and who now is saying that we have to have 0, 0, 0, 0, no carbon all across the world. Trudeau spent $11 billion on overseas gender programs during his tenure. Wonderful. Doesn't that sound familiar? Matt Goodwin, people are rightly shocked that 48% of London's social housing has gone to people who were not born in the UK, but look at some other parts of the UK. St. Matthew's, Leicester, I'm probably butchering it, 80%. 80% of housing is going to foreigners. Ealing Southall East, 76%. They're replacing the indigenous people that live in these regions with different people who have different values. This is insane. Like civilizations that do this is the fall of Rome. If you don't understand that, do some fucking research. Again, it's just crazy. It's just crazy. Let me see if there's another one I was looking for. Russia, Lavrov, the U.S. and Russia would never have their national interests aligned. That's what people were saying. They would not coincide, maybe for even 50 or less percent. When they do coincide, if they were responsible politicians, it must be used to develop into something more practical. And he's talking about trade and all this stuff. I won't show you that. Yeah, okay, I can't find it right now. It's probably under one of my other slides, and we'll go through it probably under this Trump one. We'll take a look. But just a lot of crazy stuff going on. So again, the 50% tariffs on whiskey from the United States, from Europe, has now been met with 200% tariffs placed on all alcohol products in Europe. We'll see how that goes. Sure, we're going to get updates today. Speaking of Muppets, here's the Democratic Party. This is their X account. So again, House Democrats stand united for a 4-week funding extension. House Democrats stand united. House Democrats stand united. House Democrats stand united. This is how things work with the Democratic Party anymore. It's all copy and paste. Which country besides the United States would you move to? The United States. Trump's the United States is going to be like a fucking utopia in the future. So I would move here. Again, Trump's special envoy, Steve Witkoff. Not Trump, but that makes sense. His special envoy has arrived in Moscow. Here, they're trying to convince the Russians to accept the 30-day immediate ceasefire proposed by the U.S. and accept by the Ukrainians. So again, we've given Ukraine intelligence again. We pushed them to force them to agree to a peace deal. We got that peace deal. Now we're going to try and do the same thing with Russia. And so we turned back on the security information sharing and all these other things and shipments. So we're going to do that same thing to Russia. So we let Russia win for a couple of days so that they could apply pressure to Ukraine. And now we're going to try and do that same thing to Russia. Mario said Ukraine rushes to strike a U.S. deal. Keir Starmer is scrambling to secure a trade deal with the U.S. before the 25% tariffs on UK steel and 200% tariffs on alcohol products. Trump, doubling down on this tough stance, declared, "We've been abused for a long time. We are no longer going to be abused." Again, there is a reason we're doing this, okay? The big indexes are forming a bear flag. Cool. Yeah, we can look at that in a second. Where are you seeing the bear flag, though? Where are you seeing it? Here, let's look. Let's look at the S&P. Let's see here. Where's the bear flag? I mean, we've got a rising broadening wedge. We got a rising broadening wedge, right? Like that you can kind of see as visible. We could draw it out a little bit differently. But we've also been breaking down out of a rising broadening wedge. So, I mean, this doesn't even, we could draw it to here, right? Maybe draw it to here. So we're breaking down out of a rising broadening wedge, depending on how we're drawing it. Actually, this is probably a better way to draw it. Let me do that. I will probably draw it. Let's see here. We want to find the most confluence. And that's just where everything lines up, right? So I don't see the bear flag you're talking about, but I certainly see a rising broadening wedge that has already started to break down pretty heavily, right? Yeah. So could we see more downside? Sure. But I don't see a bear flag. If you could tell me about the bear flag more, I'd take a look. All right, let's get back over here. Keep rocking and rolling. I support Trump. I can sell you Osteria and Sidra. I don't know what that is. I don't know what that is. On a bright news, though, guys. Bright news. And again, 20 minutes until the bell. 19, actually. Greenland inches closer to U.S. acquisition as the center-right pro-independence Democratic Party wins a surprise victory in parliamentary elections. The shift comes after Donald Trump stated the U.S. would take control of the island. So these guys are anti-Greenland. They want to separate from Greenland. And then they're also pro-doing more business with the United States. I think this is wonderful. Daily time frame? Daily time frame. All right, let's look. Boop, boop, boop. I mean, yeah, again, it's a rising broadening wedge and it can break down. You can call it a bear flag. But yeah, it could break down. We could go lower. I think you got to be mentally prepared for lower. We got a stronger layer of support around 5480. And then we got another fib at 5100. Could we go down there? I don't know. It'd be a pretty good reset. Would I be happy if we went down to 5,100? I don't know. I think Bitcoin will start to outperform. But I can't guarantee that this is going to happen. But you're right. It's a rising, broadening wedge. It's definitely a bearish pattern. And I was talking about how we could get down to 54 before seeing a bounce, but we bounced before it. A lot of it's going to depend on tariff talk. If we get brutalized with tariff talk for the next couple of weeks, we could totally cascade. I won't argue against that. Besant's coming up. What? Let me go to live. I need to refresh my bottom screen. 1 second, guys. It's being retarded. Sometimes I just hate. Sometimes I hate CNBC and how they do stuff. It just blows. So like my windows won't always refresh. So I'm just going to make sure that this one's working. Yeah, it is. Okay, cool. That way I can see that because I'm missing it. All right, good. So we're good there. All right, so let's keep rocking and rolling. We got a lot. So good stuff. Greenland. Love it. Now, this guy that we were looking at extraditing, this guy who screams death to the West and that his goal is to destroy the West, has security clearances with the British government. Why? Why is somebody with security clearance with the British government who's talking about overthrowing the fucking West leading riots at Columbia University? Can somebody tell me that? Can you guys tell me that? Why? Also, breaking, a federal judge in D.C. has just ordered the release of 2 Venezuelan illegals who were arrested by ICE for illegally crossing the southern border. So now we've got judges trying to prevent us from arresting people that are crossing the border. Do you smell fear from the Democratic Party? Do you smell fear from Europe? Do you smell fear from the World Economic Forum and Canada? I smell it everywhere. Everywhere. Victor says, how about Trump agreed with Canada and Mexico and EU to keep this tariff stuff public to help U.S. with his debt? I don't know what you're trying to say, Victor. I don't know what you're trying to say. It's very public right now. All of it's very public. I don't know. Trade negotiations, though, there's always closed door negotiations. So I don't know what you're trying to say. Maybe you could clarify. RFK has told food producers in the United States and people importing into the country, really, it's probably going to be a lot of the ones producing here, that they better remove artificial dyes or they're going to get banned, which I think is fucking great. Victor says, because EU is acting so fucking absurd. Yeah. I mean, they are. But again, this is going to be something. So Trump is very much like, he'll shove it into the public forum. So if they're doing any bullshit, he'll put it out there. Yeah, so again, this $10 trillion in stealing savings from people in the EU so that they can do this is nuts. Also, this is what we're fighting for. This person is talking about how, whatever the fuck she is. I'm just going to assume she's a she. I can't fucking tell, right? It's too hard sometimes. But she's saying that she wants to get her baby on puberty blockers so that he can be a girl. This is fucking child abuse. This is what we're fighting for. This is one of many things. And then let's listen to this stupid, judgmental bitch talk about how illegal immigration should be in the United States and trying to talk down to this guy because she thinks he's fucking white. This is the kind of shit I get, right? Because I'm a white man, I don't have any room to talk about anything. Fuck that. I'll talk about whatever I want. But listen to this. This is great. This guy fucking destroys her.
Do you understand this whole country was built on immigrant blood, sweat, and tears that you and your community continues to deny?
Your community.
Who's my community? What do you mean by that?
Where are you from?
So you're assuming that I'm white because I prefer Trump? I'm not. I'm Colombian.
You're Colombian?
Yeah.
Then you
How
are
do you feel
very
about that?
shameful.
How so? My dad came here illegally. He didn't cross the border.
Why are you against illegal immigrants crossing the borders looking for safety?
America does not have some history of unfettered, unrestricted immigration. That's a fantasy. America has always had rules and regulations to get in. Not to mention, people never came here expecting welfare. People came here knowing they were going to have to work. They didn't come in here with government assistance and government welfare and housing.
Yeah, again, completely unsustainable. If you look at the world, if you tried to let the world into this country, it will be the third world. It will be destroyed, just like Europe is going through right now with their experiment. We don't want that stuff to happen here. We don't need to pay people 3 times as much as somebody on Social Security makes who paid into the fucking system, okay? And yeah, your community, what a racist, bullshit, clown fucking thing to say. And I'm sorry, even if it was me standing up there saying these same things, I have the right as a white man to have a fucking opinion. And if you don't believe that, you're racist. You're racist. And Martin Luther King would be disgusted by you. no matter what the color of your skin is. Kash Patel, somebody who is not white, is a high-ranking. He arrested is charged a high-ranking career CBP official with attempting to defraud FEMA. So we're starting to go after people. This is great. Sort of looks like the dollar store Justin Timberlake. Love that. Insanity. I'm not afraid of anyone. Oh, this is what I was looking for. Okay. This is the new Canadian Prime Minister. Keep in mind, this guy strip mined Brazilian rainforest, making a fortune from it. He's released nothing about his financials or anything about them whatsoever. And he literally isn't even, like, he's barely a Canadian citizen, and he's running the fucking country right now. He is a puppet. Listen to what he has to say.
To reach net zero, every country, every company, every bank, every investor, every pension fund around the world will need to make some big changes.
This is the guy, the same guy who's saying that we have to get to net zero and that everybody has to comply with it, is the same person who strip mined the Brazilian rainforest and made a fortune off of it. So listen to the absurdity here of what's happening. Let's listen to Marco Rubio talk about foreigners like the terrorist who has British security clearance, who's trying to preach the downfall of the West. Let's listen to what he has to say about this guy's rights.
When you come to the United States as a visitor, which is what a visa is, which is how this individual entered this country, on a visitor's visa, okay? You are here as a visitor. We can deny you that visa. We can deny you that if you tell us when you apply, hi, I'm trying to get into the United States on a student visa. I am a big supporter of Hamas, a murderous, barbaric group that kidnaps children, that rapes teenage girls, that takes hostages, that allows them to die in captivity, that returns more bodies than live hostages. If you tell us that you are in favor of a group like this, and if you tell us when you apply for your visa, and by the way, I intend to come to your country as a student and rile up all kinds of anti-Jewish student, anti-Semitic activities, I intend to shut down your universities. If you told us all these things when you applied for a visa, we would deny your visa. I hope we would. If you actually end up doing that, once you're in this country on such a visa, we will revoke it. And if you...
That's the gist of it. He goes into greater detail. I think he's very eloquent in what he has to say, but this is what makes sense. This is what we're going to do. And again, guys, the market actually isn't doing too bad today. So bond yields are up a little bit. Tesla's down 0.17%. MicroStrategy's down 0.75. Mara's up 0.53. CleanSpark's down 0.62. Nvidia's up today. Chips are up probably because of that Intel news with their new CEO. I still don't have a lot of faith in Intel. They need a lot of help for their turnaround story, but maybe this new CEO will be better. But markets are actually digesting things pretty well. I want to show one other thing here real quick. Just the pre-market heat map. And this isn't an apocalypse by any means. So it's interesting. We'll see what happens, but so far looking okay. Also, I want to listen to Tom Homan talk about illegal immigration and talk about, it's just, again, it said it's wrecked Kathy Hochul. I think is she the governor of New York? I don't know. But listen to this. This is great.
Now let's talk about the green light law. Let's talk about your governor.
Governor, yeah,
okay. On national TV after NYPD were assaulted by illegal alien gang members. You had a woman burned alive by illegal alien subway. Your governor stands on national TV. I think criminal aliens should be deported. What's one of the first things she do? She goes down to New York City and tries to fire the mayor who wants to help me find public safety threats.
Oh, there's no sound?
Shout at Mayor Adams. Like him or love him. I call.
Oh, sorry. I noticed it's only coming through one headset, so this one might be weird. But essentially what he's saying is he's saying, you had a woman that burned alive on the subway system. You had all these horrible things happen. The governor of the state says, we agree. We need to get illegal immigration out of here. But then what happens? Can you hear me now? Hopefully. But what happens instead? Then she makes it harder for him to be able to pull out. She tries to get the mayor of the city fired, who's trying to work with Tom Homan. She tries to work to make it harder for them to be able to pull out illegal immigrants that are in jails and prisons. And does the exact opposite of what she says she's going to do. And he's calling her out for it. So I think that's beautiful. I think that's exactly what should happen. This says, interesting thread. The left spent the last decade building a vast censorship enterprise, a shadowy network of NGOs, tech groups, governments working to censor the left's enemies, not just in America, but across the West. Again, this is why the formula looks the same across Canada, all across Europe. And this is why we were funding crazy, weird shit all across the world. It says, over the next 4 years, the GOP must expose and dismantle this system. The censorship industrial complex wasn't built overnight. It's been festering for years. But the Biden administration mobilized an unholy alliance of government power, taxpayer dollars, NGOs, and big tech companies to build it into a global censorship powerhouse. Seemingly, every agency was a partner in building this system. The FBI, the CIA, the NSA, the DHS, the State Department, the Department of Education, the National Science Foundation, USAID, and even FEMA. Through grants and partnerships, these agencies funnel countless tax dollars to censorship programs. And again, it gives all the receipts in here too. What you have to understand is that these groups operate as one cohesive class. There's a revolving door between the public and private spheres. Former government officials populate the advisory boards of these disinformation groups and vice versa. This goes in depth across everything. I highly encourage you to listen to it. But what I want to say right now is we are at war. Right now, the Republican Party, Donald Trump, Elon Musk, other parts of Europe that are trying to break away from the European Union and all the censorship controls, the CBDCs, everything they're trying to invoke, stealing 10 trillion in euros from people's savings accounts across the EU. We're at war right now with the left, and the next couple of weeks are going to be intense. They're going to be intense. So you got to be ready for it. Are we going to be red or green today? I think Akash said. I don't know. It could go either way. I don't care so fucking much, honestly. I don't care so much. I want us to win the war. That's what I want to see. I think it's very important that we win the war. We went over some of this stuff yesterday. I don't think there's anything too interesting in here. Yep, not too much. All right. Let's go to Bitcoin real quick. We might have some Department of Government Efficiency stuff. Let's look over here. USAID $397,000 grant to San Francisco Bay to educate queer, trans, and BIPOC urban farmers on consumers about food, justice, and value aligned. What the fuck is this? To educate queer, trans, and BIPOC, whatever the fuck that means, urban farmers and consumers about food justice and value-aligned markets. What the fuck? Why are all these things 20 fucking words all the time? Can somebody tell me? And Zero Hedge said, basically, there's no way that Doge can fix the problems that we have. I said it's totally fixable, and they will. And I believe that. And again, here's Nancy Pelosi, guys. I just want to reiterate this because I think it's important. Here's Nancy Pelosi. Again, this is a different video talking about the Medicare system and what we should do with it.
We cannot keep our promises on Medicare. We simply must.
Thank you, Stevie. Thank you. Black, indigenous, and people of color is BIPOC or something. I can't keep track of all the racial terms because I don't look at people in race and judge them according to that. I just look at people like, hey, wow, you got a cool car. What do you do for a living? So I have a hard time understanding all these different terms that we've created.
Make the cuts and waste, fraud, and abuse in Medicare so that the benefits...
Oh, what are you talking about? We need to get rid of waste, fraud, and abuse in Medicare? I agree with you, Nancy Pelosi from 2010. What happened? What happened to you in the last 15 years?
And the premiums are untouched.
Trump coins up.
We owe it to our seniors.
It is. You're right.
We owe it to our country. We cannot keep our promises on that.
So again, just disgusting changes, right? And did you guys know Whoopi Goldberg got $6 million to promote diversity on The View? What the fuck? Oh, wait. This is why Community Notes is so great. The claim that Whoopi Goldberg received a $6 million grant to promote diversity on The View is false. It originated in the Dunning-Kruger Times, a satirical... Okay, so that's not real. We'll take that off. This is why I love Community Notes, man. It keeps you honest. All right, let's keep going. Department of Government Efficiency. Today, NIH canceled the following grants. $620,000 for an LGBTQ plus teen pregnancy prevention program for transgender boys. I think I went over this one yesterday. It's just fucking absurdity after absurdity. And we already watched this video, so we're good here. We've got 3.5 minutes till the bell. I'll probably jump over to the Bitcoin section, but then, just for this. This is Christine Lagarde. You got to hear this. 27 seconds.
It's a matter that needs to be agreed at a global level because, if there is
talking
an escape,
about Bitcoin,
that escape will be used. So I think it needs to be if anything, it shows that global cooperation, multilateral action is absolutely needed, whether it's initiated by the G7, moved into the G20, and then enlarged, but it's something that needs to be addressed. And FATF is clearly an organization that has expanded in that respect.
So this is her talking about Bitcoin from several years ago. And so she was talking about how the G7, the EU, they need to work to control Bitcoin in order to be able to prevent it from being used as an escape mechanism when they do CBDCs and when they do things like trying to steal your savings accounts, which they're doing right now. This is not a warning. This is what's happening. This is what they're trying to do. So again, she literally told you what she's trying to do to you. She's trying to steal your wealth and make sure that you don't have an exit. So, and the EU is fracturing, and the exit is very much available in the United States. So just know where you need to go, guys. We got another 2 minutes. I'm going to play this real quick. It's Vivek, and then we'll get to the bell.
Going to be a seismic step forward.
Ooh, this is low.
Even though the volatility of an asset like Bitcoin is obviously much greater than that of U.S. Treasuries, so too has been the rate of return on Bitcoin over the course of the last 10 years compared to those Treasuries. For the higher risk, higher return.
So essentially, this is really low volume, and I can't hear it well. But he's saying that he's bullish on Bitcoin and that he thinks it says explaining why every government and company will hold Bitcoin in the future, and that's essentially what he talks about. Also, Cantor Fitzgerald, in case you guys don't know this, Howard Lutnick, the same person who was talking about how Trump's ultimate goal is to make it to where we don't have taxes for anybody under $150,000 a year. He is the CEO of Cantor Fitzgerald. Cantor Fitzgerald is the company that lost the most people on September 11th. He has a massive hatred for the religion of Islam and thinks that it's evil. And he lived through that because that one day he took his kid to school like he had never done because his wife said he needed to spend more time and do it, and it saved his fucking life. He lost 3,200 employees that day. So it was a bad day for him. But anyway, Cantor Fitzgerald, they're launching a global Bitcoin lending service for institutional clients, partnering with Anchorage Digital and Copper for asset custody. So he definitely wants to provide freedom to the world. And it looks like we got 30 seconds. This next one's great by strategy, but we're going to come back to that because we're going to listen to the bell right now. Let me get in here real quick.
With some noting that they have had to sacrifice even on the necessities.
Yeah, well, look, it's not a great time. It's not a great time, and we don't know how much of it is concern about what.
Not a great time, guys. That's bullish.
It's happening geopolitically.
It's coming from
it's very
Jim Cramer.
We'll hear these. It's like I don't think many of the people understand that it's geopolitical. I think people just get worried, and I think they get worried because they feel like, well, wait a second, if things are this challenging and the president's making it sound very challenging, then they're going to get laid off. Or there won't be new business formation. And it's changed the attitude, it's changed the confidence of the country. The country's less confident than it was before the president was installed.
Surveys reflect that so far, at least. Yeah. Let's get the bell here in the CNBC Real-Time Exchange and the big board. It's PR week.
All right, so somebody asked, what was the reason that Vivek stepped away from Doge? My take on it is, I think they didn't need two people heading it. And like any bureaucracy, you want less, right? And what better person to have heading it than the person who just cut, 75 to 80% of the staff at Twitter and then turned it into the largest social media platform on the planet within less than 2 years. So I think it was one of those things. And now he's running for governor, right? So I think it's one of those things where it's like, hey, it was strategic. He seems to hold no ill will. If anything, I think actually in 4 years, we see J.D. Vance running for president and we see Vivek Ramaswamy running for vice president. I think that's what's going to happen. Yes, the casino is open. I'm actually going to move this. So the pre-market was a little red, but not too red. I'm moving that out of the way. We're going to go ahead and pull up the chart here and see what the casino has to offer. So Tesla down 1%, Nvidia up about 0.8, Mara up 0.7, CleanSpark up 0.37, MicroStrategy up 1.2, Bitcoin looking like it's going to test the 200 moving average again on the week or on the daily time frame. The MOVE index is coming down. That's good. We're finally seeing bond volatility roll over. Let's look at that real quick. Again, we kind of saw some of this yesterday where we spiked above this level. We don't like that. We like that it got up above that on kind of the secondary trend line. If you kind of draw it out here, you can see the secondary like resistance trend line, maybe something like that. You'd probably have to draw it a little bit differently. Something more like that, maybe. But it got rejected off of it. That's a good thing. I'm going to give it a baby color here, or at least like a lighter one. Again, this is Michael Howell preaches about this, but we want to see bond volatility reduce if we want to see the markets taken off. Let me get that out of the screen, though. So what else we got? We got HIMS down today. Here, let's sort by what's up. I want to see what the market is doing for good stuff today. Flux is up. Nobody gives a shit about that. That looks like just a horrible investment. I regret buying this one, but whatever. It's a small amount of money. Trump coin up. That is fascinating, actually. Let me just pull that chart over. It's weird to see this up today. It's weird to see it up. Wow, it had a massive spike, too. It had a massive spike. Trying to test the 100 moving average, then got wicked down immediately. Somebody did. That's a large volume candle, man. That's an interesting thing to see. But again, volumes are all in all still kind of in a decline. So we need to see something. We need to see the day close a lot stronger in this one for it to be a good sign. On my favorite shitcoin, Trump. Guess who doesn't love Trump? I guess a lot of people, but whatever. I love him. Iron up 2.63%. Fannie Mae up today. MSTU up 1.56. So again, not up a ton. MicroStrategy up. Yada, yada, yada. Clean Spark up. Yeah, so the miners are actually doing okay today. It looks like chips are doing okay today. Grab's up a little bit. What is Palantir doing? Palantir's down 0.7%. Hood's down 2%. But again, they really did well yesterday. And that's probably why Tesla's down almost 2% too. Again, when you have like almost double digits in one day, it's pretty normal to have a retracement of some kind. I think that's okay. But so far, not crazy down. I don't know where we'll end with the day. But I don't know. It doesn't seem too bad. Doesn't seem too bad. We'll see what happens. Again, tariff talk could jack shit up over the short term. You see Archer, Saranac, and Epirus all partnering with Palantir today? No, but that's cool. I love Palantir. I hope they do well. I love, I don't know. I love the company. I love what they're trying to do. I love the book. I thought it was great. And I think that, I think we need more people like that care about the West and want it to survive. So it's a great company. I hope it does really well. Strike. So this is from Strategy. Strike serves a market 2x larger than MicroStrategy. Activating the ATM provides Strategy daily access to this market. And he was still showing what Strategy or what Bitcoin looks like when compared to other assets on the planet. And this should be shocking to you, okay? If you think Bitcoin's like too big and you're not going to make any money off of Bitcoin this cycle, even though, again, I've shown you many reasons on why it's just incredibly low in price and why we're not done with this cycle. And I can show them again today. But look at Bitcoin and how tiny it is. Look at the gold market. Look at art. Look at cars and collectibles. Look at equities. Look at real estate. Look at bonds. Look at the overall money supply of the earth. Bitcoin will eat up small portions of all of these. And if it eats up, let's say 5% or 800 billion in gold, if it eats up 5% over here, 900 billion in art this cycle. So again, what do we have so far? $1.7 trillion. If it did 5% over here, if it did 5% over here, if it did 1% over here, 2% over here in equities at $115 trillion. I hope you're starting to realize that this cycle, we could see trillions of dollars flying into Bitcoin, and it would be barely anything out of these pies. I hope you get that. I hope you get that concept. It's a really important one to understand. CERN Basher said, which is the better corporate treasury, the U.S. dollar or Bitcoin? So look at Strategy, $41 billion sitting on Bitcoin. They're going to do better and surpass Tesla with their cash position, then CVS this cycle, then United Health, then NVIDIA, then Exxon, I believe, this cycle, then General Motors this cycle. They'll get close to that. So they'll probably get in the top 10 cash Bitcoin strategy positions in the United States of America, I believe, this cycle. So instead of being in 14th, they'll be in the top 10. I believe that strongly. Jeff Bezos-backed bank startup Stark is now the biggest backer of Bitcoin and crypto firms in Brazil, over 50 startups and counting. This is awesome. This is a 10-minute video. I won't go over all of it, but I highly encourage you guys to watch it. It talks about bit bonds in a nutshell and why they believe that it's a good investment and what it can do to benefit the United States of America. And it says 90% goes to government funding, 10% to buying Bitcoin, 1% interest annually for 10 years. So you get a dividend payment plan on it. 100% of BTC upside paid to 4.5% compounded annual return. So if Bitcoin does really well, you get up to 4.5% compounded annual return. So you can get, I believe, if these stack 5.5% annual. Let me know. I haven't watched the video yet myself. Remaining BTC upside split 50-50 with the government. I think this is fucking great. And again, we're looking at Bitcoin laws coming into pass right now. It looks like Arizona is in the lead. And it looks like there's two different bills that are racing in contention for that. We got Texas in here, New Hampshire, Oklahoma. We'll see what we get at a state level, but I'd be stupid surprised if we don't at least get one or two at state level for Bitcoin reserves after the federal government has done theirs. And again, in the last 23 hours, Rumble bought another 27 million in Bitcoin. I think this has been canceled right here. So again, we could chop, but we'll need to pop soon. And I don't know if we're going to pop. I think we grind around the 200 moving average, like you can see in the bottom left corner or bottom right corner. So I think this inverse head and shoulder has been canceled for now. Michael Saylor's full speech. We watched this yesterday. I think that's about it on the Bitcoin side. And again, we've got Bitwise with OWNB, where if you have at least 1,000 Bitcoin, there's over 70 companies that have adopted this playbook right now. If you've got more than 1,000 Bitcoin, you'll be included in this index, which I think is amazing and really positive. Jesse, are you totally? No, I'm not out of BITX. I've got $105,000 at least. I don't know if I have any more in another account, but I've got that much in this one. But I did dump huge amounts. Let me just pull this up yesterday, and I'll show you guys what I did. I did post it. Again, I posted, let me just go over here, subs only. I post it on X and Discord for people when I make any kind of purchases, and I disclose that, right? I said sold out of most of my BITX and a small amount of TLT to buy into calls for Mara, CleanSpark, and ArcG. I did huge allotments. I sold out of a couple $100,000 yesterday. Maybe it was $250,000 in total, and got into CleanSpark and Mara because the calls just looked ridiculous. For these, and then I bought ArcG too. Yeah, I bought more ArcG yesterday. But with ArcG, I bought June's. Again, I dial out, I lower my price target. So the ones I had before for ArcG were 50s, and now I'm at 48 for 2026. So June of 2026. So all I'm saying with ArcG is I'm saying that ArcG can go up like 120%. Oh, we got Scott Peasant coming soon too, guys. Can go up 120% and reach that target. And if it does that, I make 10x my money. Right now, I have almost $400,000 in ArcG. Again, some of these other so I've got that dispersed. I've got 100. Well, here I'll just show you. I got 150,000 over here, and let me just widen this a little bit. Yeah, there we go. So I got 150,000 now that I pushed out to these June ones, but I still think the January 2026s are going to perform. But again, I'm diversifying my risk. So if I'm dialing into stuff, I'm trying to do it further out, lower price target. Same thing with CleanSpark. Again, I originally moved to a lower target from 37 to 25 for July, but just in case, I've moved a large swath into November 2021 of 2025. Right at the end of the cycle. Might be really close to the end of the cycle, but again, my intent would not be to hold it to November. If we got a big pop, and let's say we got into the mid-20s or 30s or 40s, I would be the fuck out of this and into stock, if nothing else, and probably just, again, playing with like just IBIT or something without any leverage whatsoever. And again, Mara, I did a large purchase in Mara yesterday. I don't know the exact amount. It's showing on my other screen. So again, if you're subbed, you can look at it. And then I've got about 500,000 still in TLT. Right now, down 11% under this one. But part of that is because I sold out of my earlier ones. So it changes the cost basis. So I'm probably about flat on TLT. It hasn't been a great hedge, but it has worked as cash. And again, I had almost 1 million of it, roughly. So I've been able to dial into this market decline. And if the decline starts to reverse anytime soon for Bitcoin-related investments, I'll do really well. And it looks like I'm about even now on my TSLL. I'm real close to it. So we'll see how that stuff ends up performing today. If Tesla starts bouncing, it's down 3% on the day right now. We'll see. Might not be done on that, but I actually would like to add more to TSLL. So if we get any kind of major blowout or burn down in it, I might look to go into this a little bit more as well. But yeah, so these are the trades that I did yesterday, guys. So again, I'm trying to be fully transparent, let you guys know what I'm doing. It is my promise to you. I may have missed a response, but what is your highest conviction long-term play? Straight BTC hold? Long-term plays are tough. I don't know. For long-term play, I will say this. I do believe that we'll reach a top in Bitcoin that will happen this year. At the very least, early part of next year, just based upon how the cycle, because I still think Bitcoin's going to scream higher just like it does all the time. So I've got a very high conviction on Bitcoin for the remainder of this year. But to diversify my risk, I'm not just in Bitcoin, right? So again, I've got some Tesla that I'm adding to in a position. I've got over $500,000 in TLT. So if bond rates continue to drop, if people aren't worried about inflation anymore, if the Fed starts to capitulate, if tariff concerns start to die down in 2.5 weeks once we hit peak tariff fear, then that will do really well too, and that will hedge my bet against it. And then also I've got ARKG right now too, which if it does well, I do well. If the markets don't do well, TLT will do well. And again, I've got Tesla in here as well. So I've got some diversification across different platforms, but I really have a high conviction right now in Bitcoin this year. That's my highest level conviction. But I'm trying to dial it out to the second part just in case things are weird for a while. What's our game plan, bro, with ARKG? So again, I just showed it. I'm doing the Junes now. That's what I'm adding to. But I still have all of my Januaries, but I'm adding to June because, again, why not diversify and get risk that's further out into 2026, 2027? Would you sell TSLL and buy miners today? I hadn't thought about it. Probably not. I like the diversity. And again, let me just pull over here. I'll pull Tesla over. And maybe, I don't know. But I'll let you know whatever I end up doing. So here's where we are right now. This is a nice wick. We'll see if we end up dropping down into this trough in the 235 range or if we start to go lower. If we start to go lower, there's potential for more downside. But you do have to remember that Tesla already saw a 56% drop in a record short amount of time. So honestly, I'm probably just in the position of looking to add to this. And with TLT alone, I've got $500,000. I think that number could jump up to $1 million in the next month to 2 months. So I'm going to be slow on selling TLT. And I don't know. I like where Tesla's at. Can you tell how much I appreciate you? Thanks, Stubble. I appreciate you, man. That's very kind of you. Unlock, do you think it's better to be out of CleanSpark stocks due to current environment and currently level off with no loss or profit? I'm not doing that at all. I'm dialing into it because, again, the calls, I don't know if I have it up here. Let me see. Yeah, this is it. So let me just show you let me show you this. Let's pull up CleanSpark. Let's pull up Mara and CleanSpark. I'll do Mara first. Or actually, I'll do CleanSpark because you were talking about it. If it'll come up. So let me just see here real quick. I want to show you kind of what some of these option contracts are looking like. So I'm going to stick with the latter part of the year. We'll stick with September. There is a November too. I might hedge my bet and dial in a little bit to that. But let's just say 24. I haven't looked at open interest, any of that shit. I don't care. Let's pull over the CleanSpark call or the CleanSpark chart. So what we're saying on this is that we have the ability to go back to our previous high in March of last year for something that's already dropped. Let's see, where was it from the bottom? That had already dropped 70% in a year. A year ago, this thing's down 70% from where it was, okay? So let's look at that. So here's what I'm saying. I'm saying that we can at least get to 40. 356 upside move, okay? That gets us to less than $10 billion market cap. I don't think that's crazy at all, especially if Bitcoin starts to take off in the latter half of the year. Again, the contracts that I'm in here right now are September, but maybe I'll end up dialing into something else later that is November to give myself a little bit more time for this to play out. Because maybe there is something to be said for the first half still sucks and then the second half gets better. But that's why I'm still holding TLT and why I'm going to slow down dramatically on selling any of it. Now, what do I have for contracts for this? I've got 1,900 contracts at an average of 0.87. So let's go over here. So I've got September in here, and let's leave it for where it's at. What's it at today? It is at 88 cents. Why is that off? Let me just double check my dates here. September of 2024. Oh, what? Yes. No. What? Let me refresh here real quick. I want to make sure this is right. I need to make sure I'm in the right contract to show you the numbers. Yeah. So that shouldn't say 2024 though. It should say, or maybe I was looking at it wrong. Oh, $24 strike. I'm being retarded. What is my strike? What am I actually in? Clean Spark 20. Okay, so I did 20. So let me go back over here. So let me go to the 20. $20 strike. So I was really conservative on this one. I've got 1,900 contracts on it. Right now, the price per option, it says 0.59. I don't know if that's because of, no, that can't be right. Oh, that's for the other one. That's for the other one. Let's do the 0.88 for what it said last. It might be a little lower now. Whatever. I don't give a shit. So here's what I want to show you. So let's go back up to 40. So this is why I like this one for the potential returns. I still think we're getting to 40 or something close to it. If we don't get above 20, which is again is 157% increase, that's literally saying to get to 5 billion. I think 5 billion is a stupid low number for the market cap on this thing. But if it got to 40, I would be looking at with a purchase of $180 or $67,000. If it did that by September, I would be looking at $3.642 million. So I personally think that with a very low amount of money, and again, let's just say that it gets to 24, its previous level that it was at, with $167,000, I can make $845,000, and I can be sitting at over $1 million. If it just got to that with this one group of contracts with $167,000. So I like this bet, but this is just me. Okay, this is just me. And if we look at Mara, let's look at Mara and see what Mara is doing. And what do I have for Mara? I've got September 2025. So this isn't the November. I might have looked at CleanSpark wrong. CleanSpark, I had November. So I'd have to look at the contract, but it's something close to that. I have to look at it. It's something close to a high level of return. Let's make sure I get the right one this time. September 2026. So this only goes to January. So that's why I chose September for this one. And then what did I have for the strike? What did I have? $30. Okay. So let's go back to that. So I can rerun those numbers over there to get the right one. And then what do I have for this one? I have 3,500 contracts at 0.94. Let me make sure I get this one actually right. September? Nope, not 2026. 2025. Oh, there is a December. I don't like December. It's too far out. 30. And then what did I have? 3,500 at 0.94. And that's roughly where I think we are right now. I don't know. Maybe it's a little bit higher. 0.94, 3,400. And then let's look at Mara and what kind of levels I think we can hit with that. So I believe with Mara, and again, this doesn't have to happen. I believe that pretty easily we can go to 46. That's a 200% increase from where we're at. I believe there's potential to go to up to 500%. And I say this because, again, these guys are stacking. Well, and let me draw this down to where we are. These guys are stacking lots of Bitcoin, and I love that. I love the way that they're playing this. But let's say, for instance, that let's just look here. Let's say that all we do is just get to our previous high that we saw. And again, these guys are doing convertible bond offerings too. So, and we're getting to a point to where there's just a lot less share dilution in front of us, like none. So February, again, they were at $34. So let's look back over here and say that we just get to $34. I'll extend it further too. I'll probably put it out to like 50. Just to be conservative. And let's say that we get to $34. If we do that by like August or September, with my $320,000, just these levels, this $34 range, I can make 566%, 600%, depending upon the timing. Let's say by that it happens by December, I can make 1 to 1.45 million. But let's say that we end up going higher and we really do have an explosion in the markets. That number can get much more exponential. So I'm liking the ability. If we went up 250% on Mara, I could get 1,600% in returns. So I like, again, asymmetric bet, another one that we can potentially win. At the very least, I think I can make millions of dollars off of all of these, especially when I incorporate, again, the MSTU and the MSTX that I have. I'm sitting on probably about $900,000 in those right now too. So, and again, it looks like Bitcoin's down $82,000. It looks like we're going down. Joseph Yossi, it's been growing a lot. What's been going? Let me start up higher here and see if I probably missed a bunch of comments. I may have missed your response. Oh, that was the last one. Okay. Sawyer, would you buy MSTX calls? No, I wouldn't. I wouldn't do that because you're buying MSTX is a leveraged play on Bitcoin. It's a leverage play on MicroStrategy, which is a leverage play on Bitcoin. So you're already 2 layers deep in Inception on leverage, and you're talking about adding a third one. Your targets will be very tough to hit because all of that has like tracking errors. All of that has, it's just, I think that's too much fucking leverage, man. I wouldn't do it. You can check the math on it, but I just wouldn't do it. Stevie G, can you check CleanSpark against BTC chart? Yeah, actually, I had a post about that. Let me show you. I will go back and show this to you because that is a good one, actually. Let me go back over here. And then we'll go back to Tesla. So CleanSpark to Bitcoin is beautiful, actually. So this is basically back around the time that we started to see, the top in CleanSpark. But you can see here the CleanSpark to BTC ratio. You can see where you get the pumps and then we drop back down, get the pumps, drop back down. Right now, though, we're showing bottom support. So we're showing that miners, at least with CleanSpark, appear to be finding a bottom that they were able to find in 2023 going back to 2023, April of 2023, and then again in about November of 2024. And that's when we had that big splurge up in CleanSpark. And again, big splurge up versus what Bitcoin was doing. And so right now it looks like, again, we're finding one of these levels, which is why I like that play so much. So thank you for bringing that up. That is a good one to look at. Echo, thank you. Stubble said he appreciates. Thank you. And so I think hopefully I answered that question that you had. Unlock real estate in regard to CleanSpark, because I actually think that this is a great time to be in it when everybody else is running away and when they're bitching about Matthew Schultz. Scott King, I'm 12,500 in TSLL shares with more dry powder to buy more. What Tesla price do you like to buy more TSLL? Let's see here real quick. I don't know if I have an exact price for you there. Let me just look real quickly here. No, that's the U.S. government bond. There we go. So I actually think this is a great range. I think this is the bottom. But again, maybe we could go down a little bit further. Maybe we get down to this next line where we back test the previous line of resistance that goes all the way back to when? November of 2021. This is going to act as a very strong layer of support, and you can draw it a little bit differently. Like maybe, depending upon the time frame that you're looking at, it can vary just a little bit. So maybe right about there. If we drop hard, I think 184. Like again, look at the confluence here. So you got massive volume right here, right? And then you also have a previous resistance line that could be back tested and turned into support. So I should probably, let me just do this. I'll draw it down to like here as the lowest level. So it's not much further than what we have. Right now we're sitting at 237 and I'm talking about the potential for getting to 185. But I think after that, man, I think that would just be really sick and a great level. 29% shortage on CleanSpark. Yeah, crazy. Dario, CleanSpark, Mara, MSTR, based on BTC, they need a BTC breakout to run. If you look at the BTC and MicroStrategy charts, they're almost identical. Can you compare them? Yeah, we can look at them. Again, Bitcoin looks good. It could drop further. We do have a support zone underneath of us, or we could just grind here for a little bit before we figure out how to go up higher. I do think, though, that, again, major tariff concerns, we're hearing like more and more and more every day. And maybe we back test down to this trend line again. Maybe we back test down to the previous trend line that goes back to the beginning of time, right? Like, what is this time range here? That's not even the full. Is that the full? Yeah, no. Let's see here. Let me go back further. This is only on the 4 hour, so it's not giving us a lot of signal. That's the monthly. Where are we here, guys? Am I missing something here? I don't know what just happened there. Let me go to the weekly. Might have to. Oh, there we go. What time frame am I? There we go. This is what I want to look at. This is like a little better of a view. Monthly would have been okay too. But again, look at this. We've got this trend line where the previous cycle top, April of 2021, November of 2021, and then it matches perfectly with the trend line over here of March of 2024. that marked the top, and then we broke down, and then we went up. And again, you got to line this stuff up with gold, guys. Gold's been breaking out higher, but gold's just simply moving before Bitcoin. So if we bring in gold over here, let's just look at this real quick. So gold has been grinding. Like, look at this. Gold has had a massive breakout since March of 2024. So at the same time that Bitcoin was kind of grinding and starting to top off, let me go back over here. So let's look over here. So we had this period of like March 2024 where we peaked. And then for a period to about October till the end of this next year, then Bitcoin finally broke up, right? So really for all of 2024, Bitcoin was just grinding down and sideways and stopped. But if you look over here, that was about the time where gold started to take off, right? And it's been taking off still. But again, it doesn't move as much. So it went from 191 to 271 or 272. And this is the GLD. This isn't a perfect representation of gold, whatever. It's close enough, right? So you still got gold breaking out. But what's going to happen is gold will take a breather. And when gold takes a breather, that's when you'll see Bitcoin screaming. And again, you can kind of see some of this over here too. You can see in March of 2022, you can see where the gold got just butchered to the end of October of 2022, and then it went up, and Bitcoin went along with that. But these two jockey back and forth, while and they're both headed in the same direction though. It's up. The fundamentals of both of them are going to be up, and so this doji candle that we're printing here, I feel very good about that as a bottom signal on the weekly time frame. And whether we grind here again for another week, another 2 weeks, while we figure out trade war stuff, or grind down into it. If we grind down into it too, guys, and stay around the low 80s to upper 70s, you'll see a point where you'll see that Bitcoin miners and MicroStrategy are starting to outperform. I strongly believe that. We don't have any other economic data. It's approaching 9 o'clock. Let me see what else you guys have to talk about. What are your thoughts on Michael Howell's comments about the surge in commodities like gold? I think global liquidity means higher prices for all risk assets. I think what he's talking about is he's just waiting for liquidity to start really picking up. And tariff talks are halting that temporarily because people, when they look at tariffs at face value, they think there's going to be inflation. We didn't have it in 2016. We're not going to be having it right now. It'll be a very short-lived pump in price, and then it'll start to roll over. It looks like MicroStrategy. So we've got TSLL down 9.3% today. So Tesla's down about 4.5%. We've got MicroStrategy down 2.57%. So that means MSTX is down about 5%. We got ARKG down. So basically, people are worried about tariffs. And like I said, tariffs, that you can have those concerns. They won't last long. There is a breaking news thing. Let me actually see what it is, if it's anything interesting. Oh, Scott Bessent. Is he? Yeah, I might have to stick around for that, man. I got to stick around for Scott. Is that actually happening right now? Let me see.
Approaching the lows of the week, still about 30 points away, despite some solid macro data this morning on PPI and claims.
When is Scott Bessent coming on?
Let's get to Sarah this morning with the Treasury Secretary. Morning,
right
Sarah.
now. Okay.
Good evening from Singapore, Carl, where I'm here for the Converge conference at CNBC. And good morning to you, Mr. Secretary in Washington. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning, Sarah.
Let's start right there, because Carl just went through the markets. It's another sort of turbulent day here. The volatility has really picked up. We're down another more than 3.5% for the week, almost 10% from the recent highs. I know that you guys have brushed this off, but I do wonder if you're starting to get concerned now that these losses are picking up.
Well, look, Sarah, what we're focused on is we're focused on the real economy. Can we create an environment where there are long-term gains in the market and long-term gains for the American people? I think, having been in the markets for 35 years, I know the market is prone to big unwinds like this. I think we've seen a lot of position unwinding, and I can't really speak to that.
I guess, and this has been consistent with your view, but 62% of Americans own stocks. I mean, it's near 20-year high. So how can the White House
if he doesn't appear to have strong conviction here, we could see the markets roll over even more. We'll see what happens. He is brilliant, though.
Look, that, Sarah, I didn't say we're not concerned. I'm not concerned about a little bit of volatility over 3 weeks, because if you look over the long term, the reason stocks are a safe and great investment is because you're looking over the long term. If you start looking at micro horizons, stocks become very risky. So we are focused over the medium long term, and I can't tell you that the market is going to go up today, tomorrow, next week, but I can tell you that if we put proper policies in place, it's going to lay the groundwork for both real income gains and job gains and continued asset gains.
Trump puts it out there right now.
Understood that you're focused on the long term, and part of it is these tariffs, but now there's concerns about a possible government shutdown. Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer saying the Democrats are going to reject a government funding bill. We have this deadline tomorrow night. What is your expectation, Mr. Secretary, and how destructive would this be?
Well, it'd be incredibly disruptive. And look, Sarah, I know you said you've been in Singapore all week, but I think the underreported story of since January 20th and of the past few weeks is this incredible Republican unity and this Democratic disarray. Is that we've seen Speaker Johnson get through with President Trump's help a tax bill, get it over the Senate. We saw a clean CR bill. And if Senator Schumer wants to reject it, hurt the American people, close down the government, and they're going to own any of the problems that go with it, including economic slowdown. And if this is all they got, then they ought to regather and think about what they're doing to the American people and the economy.
I do 100% agree with that. I think that literally you've got a unified Republican base, and it totally looks 100% partisan for them to want to shut down the government, especially when last time that didn't happen, and the government went on, and they complained that even a partial shutdown for a short period of time was very problematic for people. They can play all those recordings and make them look horrific, and eventually I think get them to succumb. But again, expect volatility over the next couple of weeks.
Do you think that this shutdown would cause economic harm?
It can't be good.
Yeah, he's right.
Yeah, I mean, look, the market's been really focused on tariffs, Mr. Secretary, and it's been another sort of up and down ride this week. A lot of uncertainty among business leaders. This morning, President Trump threatened a 200% tariff on Europe on wines, champagnes, and alcoholic products coming out of France and other EU countries. And I do wonder how that comes to be. Was this premeditated? Did you know about this? This is in retaliation to what Europe did, in retaliation to the steel and aluminum tariffs, but 200%?
Yeah.
Look, I was with the Business Roundtable yesterday. I think it was 135 CEOs, and I talked to them about our plan, which includes tariffs, deregulation, and what I call reprivatizing the government, and bringing down this incredible level of government spending. And one or two items with one trading block, I'm not sure why that's a big deal for the markets.
Yeah, he's right.
I think that the big deal for the market is just the not knowing what's next and what the target is necessarily going to be, and also not knowing where this stops. Because if we ratchet up tariffs, they retaliate, we go higher, then what?
They capitulate.
Look, sir, it could go the other way too. Look, that's the nature of these reciprocal tariffs. That all President Trump is asking is for countries to take theirs off. So we have identified some strategic industries, the steel, aluminum, likely autos, but everything else is up for grabs, and that's going to be a decision that's made by our trading partners.
Yeah, that was one of my questions, which is how these tariffs come off, if that is ultimately the goal, because it feels like once they go on,
they're
it just
reciprocal.
gets out of control from there.
Well,
again, they're meant to be reciprocal. It's literally hey, if you take these off, we'll take them off. So that's how they come off. It's when these guys decide that they're done. and that they don't want a tariff war and that it's too damaging to their economy. And I'm sorry, we have all the cards in this game. We do.
Again, that's a decision by our trading partners if they want to ratchet things up. And I could tell you, as somebody who's studied the history of this, it is the surplus country that takes the greatest hit. We have a big trade deficit with these countries.
Good job.
In the event that there's a back and forth with tariffs, I would counsel these government leaders that they are on the losing side of this argument economically.
Yep. That's beautiful. Pointing out the fact that the surplus countries are the ones that get fucked. So it's countries like China. It's the people that send a bunch to us that are going to suffer the wrath. And again, Canada is definitely on that list too. So it makes more sense for them to dial it back and not damage their own economies.
You mentioned the Business Roundtable that you attended yesterday. What did you hear from CEOs on this issue? How much frustration or nervousness is there?
Good question.
Look, I think that we were always going to have a transition from this incredible, unsustainable level of government spending that we had. I think last week I called it a detox. And generally, they're very supportive of that. And we're going to have a transition. We are going to de-lever the government and re-lever the private sector, both through the regulated banking system and through industrial deregulation. They were very excited about that. And the one thing in terms of certainty that everyone was the main topic is the tax bill. And we're working on that every day. I had a meeting with the Senate House leadership and Kevin Hassett from the White House yesterday. So that's moving forward nicely. And I'm confident that that's on track. We're not going to have the biggest tax hike in history on Jan 1. We're shooting to get this done this summer, and I think that's going to provide a lot of certainty for American households and for industry.
Yep.
I definitely want to get to that in your meeting and where that's going on Capitol Hill with the tax cuts. But just while we're on trade and the response from corporate America, when you say that when we're in a period of detox, you used that word on CNBC last week, is that a euphemism for recession?
Not at all. It doesn't have to be, because it'll depend on how quickly the baton gets handed off. Our goal is to have a smooth transition. But
again, this is why you want to hit it hot and heavy too with tariffs. This is why you want daily rhetoric with tariffs. You want the pain to be felt fast so that you get to, oh, hey, it looks good. We're actually starting to see tariffs coming off. We're seeing more markets open up. We're getting more news that more companies are in the United States and building here. You want it to happen fast. And it's not like the Great Depression where we were literally trying to be protectionist. We're trying to do the opposite of that. We're trying to open up our markets to the world and make it to where we can start selling to them. That is not the Great Depression at all.
I tell you, Sarah, the easy thing for us,
while trying to balance our budget and make it to where we remove all the corruption and all the other stuff. These are beautiful things.
To have done would have been to come in and just keep this massive spending level going.
Yes,
and
he's right.
It's unsustainable, but could we have kept it going for a year, 2 years, maybe even 4? Maybe, but you're risking a financial calamity. So, we are trying to get this tax bill done. We are
He's 100%
controlling expenses. And when we get the tax bill done, so if you can change the trajectory up revenues, up economic growth, hold expenses flat, or do the unthinkable and cut expenses, then that's a pretty good trajectory on growth. And if we go back to the model in the 90s, that's exactly what happened. We'd see interest rates come down, we'd see the private sector take up the slack from the government. Because right now we have excess employment in the government, and those people can be moved to the private sector.
He's right.
Yeah, I mean, the question is what's realistic when it comes to...
He's right. There's literally no other choice for America right now. So if you guys care about what your stocks are going to do a year, 2 years, 4 years from now, this is what has to happen now. And I think the pain is going to be so fucking short-lived. Argentina turned around their entire fucking economy in a year. Let's just look at something real quick here. We're going to go on a tirade. This is what the people who don't stick around miss. All right. So when did Javier Milei get elected? Let me just find here. I haven't drawn this out before, so we're doing this in real time, guys. Let's see here. 2020. When did he actually come into power? Fuck it. I should have used... Does anybody have the date? I think it's... No, it's not 2018. Let me use Grok. I made the mistake of using Google. And so, Javier Milei become the president of Argentina. I misspelled it, but Grok's smarter than Google, so I'm sure we'll get an answer really quick. It was in 2018. December 2023. Okay, cool. All right, so we got our date. Let's just look at this here real quick, guys. Let's look at this. Let's look at this. Let's look at this. So right... Where is it? Right here. Right here. So the market crashed thinking that he was going to become the president of the United States, or the president of the country. What does it say? General election, he was elected in a runoff of the election on November 19th. So the market crashed because he came into power. Does that sound familiar? Does that sound very like Donald Trump of what's happening right now? Does that sound like what's happening right now? And so I'll just draw this line here and we can look later. So in the next year, and I can pull up some of the Argentina stats here, but essentially from his election on, their market went up 135% from the bottom of that crash. And again, look at this. Look at how strong this is. Over that time frame, what was this man doing? What was he doing to his country? What did the stats look like? So he slashed governments. Look at this. All the spending, he just slashed immensely. His approval rating started to skyrocket. Inflation just plummeted since he got elected. Look at where they were. Look at where they are now. So in about a year, guys, in about a year, a little over a year, look at what this man was able to fucking do. And again, quarterly GDP evolution. Look at this. Look at this. Look at this. Put your fucking eyes on this. In 3 quarters from when he was elected, in 3 quarters, he was able to go from negative GDP to positive. In 6 quarters, a year and a half, it's through the roof. He doesn't have near the levers that we have to be able to create a much better economy. And what he did in that amount of time was phenomenal. Let me see what some of these other stats. I could pull up more interesting stuff. But again, they have a budget surplus. Their economy is in great shape. And he did this stuff in like a little over a fucking year. He transformed this country. Transformed it. I just want to say this is going to happen on steroids.
Cutting the debt. I think you yourself have said you want to get to a 3% deficit to GDP.
Steroids.
Almost 6.5% last fiscal year.
So shorten the time frame and increase the boom.
Doge is working on it. $115 billion in Doge savings so far, though, so that's not going to make a dent. Where do you see the meaningful cuts coming from when you talk about?
Doge has been running for like a little over a month, dude. They built up a team of 100 people. They're looking to get up to 200. They're going to ramp and scale. They're at a savings of $4 billion a day is what Elon Musk said that they're currently their trajectory is at. That would put them at 1.46 trillion in savings a year, the path that they would be on if they keep doing what they're doing. This is a huge fucking number. Don't discount it. The Democrats aren't discounting it. They're trying to make it sound like it's smaller than it is, but they're pissed. By the way, MicroStrategy up 0.45%, CleanSpark up 0.31%, Tesla down 4%. It looks like the market's starting to like what he's having to say.
Rebalancing away from the government.
Well, look, I don't know what your family budget is like, but to me, $115 billion is a lot of money. That's 5% of the deficit.
I like him.
Last year.
This is the new Powell,
guys. That's a pretty good start, and it's only been 6 or 8 weeks.
Your family budget looks
so
like.
There's probably a lot more that we can do, and there's 2 parts to this. It's accelerating the economy,
it'll take less. That's wrong.
the revenue base and controlling expenses. The U.S., we do not have a spending problem.
Yes.
Government revenues are right at the long-term baseline that the previous administration just blew things out to the upside, and we're trying to get this under control.
What about the economic signals that you're seeing right now? We saw this surge in small business optimism after the election because of some of the policies you're talking about. And then for the second month in a row now, we've seen a drop. Also, the Atlanta Fed, for instance, is forecasting a negative growth rate for the first quarter. I could go on about some of the confidence warnings right now, but I am curious if you're concerned about what you're seeing in the underlying economy.
Well, sir, I think you've been away, but I think the Atlanta Fed has revised up their number to a positive number. That was due to gold imports, which was kind of an anomaly. So, I'm not worried about a very noisy indicator. And again, as I told the Business Roundtable yesterday, as I tell your viewers, what we're trying to do is create economic certainty. We're going to do it with the tax plan. We're going to do it with deregulation. And I also said to the Business Round, I think it was 135 CEOs yesterday, if you came out with a plan similar to what Doge wants to do with the federal government, all your stocks would go up 15 or 20%. It would be considered a miraculous restructuring, cost savings, and put you on a sustainable course. So I think we're not getting credit for this yet. I think we will. So.
Yeah, I mean, and part of what you want to do is lower interest rates, which you've said, and that should happen if the government cuts spending. I do wonder. We've seen a drop in rates, as you've said, from near 5.
MicroStrategy up 1.2%, Tesla down 3.82%. The market's definitely liking what he has to say. CleanSpark up 0.8%, Mara down 0.72%. It looks like things are turning around. Bitcoin's starting to pick up.
% on the 10-year, we're down to 4.3, but it's happening for the wrong reasons, right? It's happening because of economic slowdown concerns, and it's moving in the opposite direction as stocks. So
we
do
don't
you
give
want
a
to see
shit.
rates fall, even if that's why it's happening?
Well, look, let's disaggregate, Sarah, why rates are going down. We had a surprise CPI yesterday on the downside. We had a flat PPI. So maybe the inflation is getting under control, and the market's going to have some confidence in that. There are a lot of reasons
Thanks, JT.
that rates can come down.
Yes, there's a ton, and there's going to be an ever-growing list.
I wonder also what you make of the U.S. dollar. I mean, this is right in your territory.
MicroStrategy up over
as hedge fund
2%.
Manager, I know, and also Treasury Secretary. U.S. dollar's been weakening.
Mara just went
as
green.
well, which wasn't
CleanSpark heading
necessarily
too.
what was supposed to happen with the tariffs, and whether that speaks to anything about foreign demand for our assets in the U.S. right now.
People like him.
Well, Sarah, I don't have to tell you or anyone on the show, markets live in the future, and the U.S. dollar priced in a lot after President Trump's victory and the Republican sweep. So, a lot was priced in that it's natural to see an adjustment, and I think the markets adopted a wait and see attitude.
Victor.
And the other good news for global consumption is that for the first time in 25 years, the Germans are going to take off their debt brake. This is something that the French leadership had tried to do. The Italian leadership, the whole EU have been very frustrated with German spending, and President Trump has gotten them to up their spending on military. So we could see an upside growth.
This is devastating for them and for all of the EU, but it's hugely beneficial for us. And the amount of benefit we're going to see from all of this is going to be so dramatic that we can help lift up the rest of the world, and we will be able to get them to comply. Greenland will be a part of the United States. Mark my fucking words. I don't know that Canada will be, but Canada will be a much more friendly environment. Trust me.
Growth surprise in Europe.
Pierre's going to win.
China seems to have stabilized with some of their working groups, so that other countries are doing better. It's natural that after this big surge in the dollar, that other currencies could do well.
Yeah, and we have seen the euro
We love it.
shoot up like that. Since you mentioned China, I'm curious if there's a dialogue going on between you and your Chinese counterpart, whether there's any talks scheduled for President Trump and Xi, just given the U.S. has amped up the tariffs to 20% on Chinese goods, whether there's any capacity or scope for discussion about what to do about that or a potential deal.
Yeah.
Well, there's always capacity for discussion, and a lot of what President Trump does is maneuver into a good position for a deal. So I've had one conversation with my Chinese counterpart. We had a very, very good discussion. I talked about some of our national security concerns, about them buying sanctioned Russian oil, sanctioned Iranian oil, the fentanyl crisis. And, Sarah, the other thing that we've seen that with President Trump's initiatives,
good call.
With the tariffs on Mexico, on Canada, on China, we've seen the fentanyl imports at the border down 40%. 40%. And think how many American lives, think how many
needs to be down 95.
That saves. So, yes, we're having a dialogue, and I'm sure at some point...
Imagine how much better the streets of San Francisco look when all these fentanyl, drugged out, fucking zombie pieces of shit that have just completely given up on life because they're so obsessed by this drug. It makes... People used to talk about heroin. It's 50 times more powerful than heroin. Imagine what happens when that stops becoming a problem and these guys start to dry up. Imagine how much better things look just from that alone.
President Xi will
engage made in the USA.
In high-level talks. I can't tell you when.
Right. So you did mention that you met with congressional leaders on Capitol Hill about extending the tax cuts. Where are we? What are the biggest challenges so far?
Real quick, before that question gets answered, JT said, I was reading The Fourth Turning by Strauss. I think I have that. This book right here. It's a great book that you guys should definitely read. I like it better. I mean, Ray Dalio has an interesting book, but he makes all these comparisons between China and the United States. And he's very much like he's talking about all this U.S. debt lately, but he's not talking about the fact that China's 3x that. But this is a good book. And again, the fourth turning is a very real concept that goes out for millennia. And it's important for you to understand that, this crisis that we're in right now, that the United States is doing. I was worried about the fourth turning. The fourth turning wants to go to war, right? But I think what we're doing is we're turning it into a Bitcoin war. We're turning it into a tariff war. We're turning it into other forms of war to be able to get it to where everybody falls in line and does what they need to do. At the same time, we're creating a sustainable path for our country when we were on an unsustainable one. Only good things can happen from all the policies that we're looking to invoke. Don't be short fucking sighted and care about daily price action over what is really happening in this economy, okay? And the pain that the rest of the world is putting themselves through by not doing the things that we're doing. Now, don't get me wrong, there's good places that are. El Salvador, Argentina, again, Poland has seen nothing but growth. There are places that are doing the right things. We're going to be creating a new superpower alignment with countries that are willing to do that. And the ones that do will prosper and live a great future. The ones that don't will be in pain and suffering. I mark my fucking words. You'll remember this in 6 months. You will, whether you know it now or not.
In getting this done.
I think it's just coordination.
Yes, purchase made in the USA.
Speaker Johnson did a fantastic job of getting it out of the House. It's with the Senate now, and I'm hoping that they could get to a joint markup sometime in the coming weeks.
Whoa, what did he just say? I got to go back.
You did mention that you met with congressional leaders on Capitol Hill about extending the tax cuts.
Oh, okay.
Where are we? What are the biggest challenges so far in getting this done?
I think it's just coordination. Speaker Johnson did a fantastic job of getting it out of the House. It's with the Senate now, and I'm hoping that they could get to a joint markup sometime in the coming weeks.
So close for a couple of weeks. I agree.
Isn't it hard enough to roll over the 2017 tax cuts? How do you pay for some of the other stuff that they want to put in here and that the president wants to put in here? Increased salt cap, tax on no tax on tips,
reconciliation,
or Social Security, that sort of thing?
Well, Sarah, I think to a lot of people it's not obvious that if we extend or make permanent the TCJA,
me too, Victor.
Other than getting back full expensing, there's no stimulus there. So we are just keeping the economy on the same level that it is. So it's important to add the president's initiatives here to give the economy some impetus. And again, that's going to be through a combination of growth and some spending restraint. And look, I've been in the investment business for 35 years. I thought I understood CBO scoring from the outside. Shame on me. Now that I'm on the inside, I see how crazy some of this scoring is. And for instance,
I love him. He's a good dude.
CBO, it's all in a 10-year window, assumes a 1.7, 1.8% growth rate no matter what. If we have the biggest tax hike in history, CBO will tell us we're going to grow at 1.7, 1.8. And if we are able to get the tax bill through, get some new stimulus in, then we're still going to grow at 1.7, 1.8. Neither one of those scenarios really holds water in the real world. So we're trying to put some the real world projections together, share those with the House and Senate leaders, and they're very receptive to those.
Good. Believe this man. He speaks in honesty. He's not a politician.
I also wanted to ask you, while we have time on Ukraine and on Russia, because I know you've been involved in these discussions. You've been to Kyiv, met with President Zelensky. The President Trump threatened this week, if Russia doesn't sign on to this ceasefire, there will be financial repercussions that would be very damaging, devastating, he said, for Russia. And I know you've said also last week in New York that you're prepared to go all in. So what exactly does that look like? And have you drawn...
I love this administration where we don't fuck around and we make shit happen. If you don't understand the gravity of what has happened in the last 2 fucking months since they started, you will eventually.
Plans for further sanctions or tariffs on Russia to pressure them to do this deal?
Nah, I don't do covered calls.
Well, I'm not going to show, I'm not going to lay our cards out on worldwide TV, but I could tell you that I was very dispirited during the Biden administration's sanctions level because they, I thought, went at a minimal sanctions level because they were worried about domestic energy prices. We've seen crude come down about 13, 15.
He's saying that we can pummel Russia.
15% since Inauguration Day, and that is with the Biden administration, Jake Sullivan, deciding that they're no longer worried about crude prices. So, if we just take kind of a scale 0 to 10, that I think the Biden administration sanctions on Russia were probably a 3. On the way out the door, they took them to a 6. And I can tell you, we wouldn't hesitate to take them up to 10. And
should have said 11.
This is all part of President Trump setting the table for successful negotiations. He's willing to apply maximum pressure on both
all sides. Yeah, that's great. This is exactly how you do this, man.
No, I know you were very strong on this during the confirmation hearings on your views on this. Finally, we talked about Doge. I mean, I'm just curious, how would you describe Elon Musk's engagement with Treasury at this point? We know that there was some early, stories about the access, but how closely are you working with him at this point, and how much room is there to cut in the Treasury itself?
Well, look, there's always room for better performance, especially when we think about the federal government. And Sarah, what I like to emphasize, I emphasized it yesterday to the business leaders. I want to emphasize it to your viewers. Let's remember the E in Doge is efficiency. It's not elimination. It's not extinction. We are trying to make the government do better for the American people and right-size it. And I don't think that there is anyone who is happy with the bundle of services that they get from the federal government. So you're sitting in Singapore. I met with some leaders from Singapore yesterday, and Singaporeans love their government. They think that it does good things for them, and they spend about 18% of GDP on their government. if we were to balance the budget, we've been at 18% of GDP. So why can't we have the government do a better job for the American people at a better price?
Well, we certainly appreciate the time, Mr.
Great
Secretary,
job.
on all the issues that you're focused on in your portfolio. Sorry for the delay from Singapore. Next time, hopefully in person. We appreciate it very much, though.
Good. Have a safe trip, Sarah.
Thank you very much. That is Secretary Scott Bessent, the Treasury Secretary of the United States, Carl.
Yeah. Okay. I don't give a shit about the rest of this. Plus, I got to go work out. Got to go get tough. Yeah, guys. So MicroStrategy up over 2%, Mara up 0.4, CleanSpark holding on to roughly 2%, Nvidia up 1, Tesla down 3.2. But again, after a really good day yesterday, Palantir down 3.37, still appears to be in a bottoming pattern. Hood appearing to be in a bottoming pattern, down 3.53. I like what I'm seeing. I like what Scott Bessent is saying. I love what this administration is doing. I don't disclose where I'm from, but I love all of this. There's too many fucking crazy people. I got a lot of guns, but there's too many fucking crazy people. So I learned, you know what I learned? I learned when I had my full name out there, and I learned that on a weekend that some crazy motherfucker messaged my wife on Messenger because he found me on Facebook to tell her that I was a scammer trying to scam people out of money. That was disturbing enough. She told him that I was not. And she told him that everything I said that I've done, I have done. And I think I've showed that in enough ways over the last several years. But whatever. So after that creepy, weird fucking instance, I took my name off. And I don't disclose personal stuff like that. I just don't think it's in my best interest. People are too fucking weird. Too many crazies. And I say too many things that some people hate. So I don't think it's a smart thing for me to give too much personal information. But yeah. So, yeah, I don't want to get swatted. I don't want to have to worry about my family getting hurt by some dipshits. But yeah, so I'm very excited. MicroStrategy up almost 3% now today, guys. I'm very excited about what we just heard. I think that you have to remove the noise from the signal, okay? Focus on the fact that the government is doing the right things for our country 6 months from now, a year from now, 2 years from now, 5 years from now, that we are at the beginning of an age of abundance, a golden age for this country, and a golden age, I believe, for humanity. One where maybe North America is in complete alignment. One where maybe North America could all be one country. I wouldn't discount it. But again, even if it isn't, I think we're going to be much more aligned than we have been previously. I think Mexico, the United States, and Greenland will all be under a much tighter umbrella. And I think we're going to take out the Mexican drug cartels. I think that we're going to align a lot with Argentina and El Salvador and Italy and Romania and all these other countries, and Poland and all these other, and probably Hungary and probably Russia and every other country that wants free and open markets, every other country that doesn't want CBDCs, every other country that wants Bitcoin to be the power and the store of value for the earth. I think all of those things are happening. Every country that wants to see Tesla succeed, we're going to be in alignment with all of this. We're going to see a golden age in front of us. And I think if you just feel the pain and suffering of what has been for the last year, or what was for 2022, or what was briefly from 2020, or you've got trauma from the 2008 great financial crisis, or maybe you're old enough where it's back in the .com crisis, you'll miss opportunity. And I think definitely, no matter what happens, stay in the game and keep trying to figure out how to adjust and make a bunch of money in the future, because I think a lot of money is to be made. And I'm going to be here for that ride, and I'll be here with you guys too along with it. I love you guys. Peace out. I will see you tomorrow bright and early at 7 o'clock. Again, not too much going on with economic data tomorrow. I mean, I can't say that. We do have a decent chunk. So we got Canadian data for motor vehicle sales, wholesales. We got all the Michigan data. That's going to be the big stuff for tomorrow. But it's not nothing, but it's not nearly what CPI and PPI were, which were fucking awesome. I love you guys. Take it easy. I will talk to you